Chapter 1333. This series of psychological changes was completed in an instant. Yi Wushuang and Xiao Hei's expressions changed slightly. They wanted to say something but hesitated. Yi Chen took a deep breath in and signaled the two of them with his eyes. He then looked at the giant puppet sex patriarch and said, "Fellow Qiu, I'm suddenly interested in that person with the surname Sure. Moreover, as the Immortal Palace's Thunder Immortal Envoy, I naturally have the obligation to help you capture and eradicate the rebels from the lower realm." Hearing this, the giant puppet sex patriarch pondered for a few seconds before nodding and saying, "That's good too. Since Lord Immortal Envoy is interested, how can I refuse? When the time comes, Lord Immortal Envoy just needs to watch from the side. Just my giant demon sect is enough to deal with such a small fry." Yi Chen looked at the nascent soul cultivator who was kneeling on the ground after he said that. "Where are they?" That person did not dare to hide anything and said, "Lord Immortal Envoy, they're at Three Corpse Ridge." The Three Corpse Ridge was a rather strange place in Dang Province. This place was located between three star mountains. The terrain was special, the land was black, and the Yin energy was extremely dense. Due to the frequent rumors of haunting, most people would die when they heard of it. However, this place with extremely dense Yin energy and few people was currently covered by the pungent smell of blood and monstrous killing intent. At the peak of Three Corpse Ridge, a white-robed figure stood there with a halberd in his hand. His white robe had long been dyed red with blood. It was a black-haired young man. His extremely handsome features were slightly pale, and he seemed to be injured. There was blood at the corner of his mouth. If one took a closer look, they would find that his eyes were completely black, like black holes. A strange and evil mysterious power surged out, as if an ancient demon lord had descended from above. Beneath his feet, corpses piled up like a mountain. The scarlet blood caused the black ground to turn red. It was a ghastly sight. The remaining few thousand cultivators sealed off everything and looked at him in fear. Their eyes were filled with fear. The reason being that the other party had killed thousands of them by himself, and there were even a few perfected nascent soul cultivators among them. If not for the fact that the source of the news was accurate, they would not have believed that this was the ant and rebel from the lower realm that they disdained. "Shi Qianhan, accept your fate." Several figures sealed off the world. Among them, an old man in a black robe fixed his gaze on the former. "Today you have nowhere to go. Why must you struggle? Young man, surrender." An early-stage soul formation cultivator in a golden robe slowly said with a bewitching voice, "I can see that your talent is extraordinary. If you surrender now, I can spare your life. I can even ask the Immortal Palace to accept you as a disciple." The white-robed youth's demonic eyes were extremely powerful. He almost fell into the trap just now. Ah! At this moment, a mournful roar came from the white-clothed youth. "How can I, Shi Qianhan, be surrounded by so many experts? There's even an emperor's throne among them." The halberd in his hand let out a mournful cry. "Cut the crap, come on!" The white-clothed youth wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked at the crowd below with resentment and mockery. "I, Shi Qianhan, will only die standing, never kneel to live." The giant puppet sex soul formation elder's eyes turned cold, and he immediately shouted, "This person's eye technique must have a price. He can't keep using it. Let's attack together and kill him." As his voice fell, the thousands of cultivators who were hesitating and did not dare to step forward also activated their true essence and charged towards the white-clothed youth with monstrous killing intent. "Brother Yi, I'm afraid I won't be able to wait for you." The white-clothed youth smiled and took a deep breath. The black aura in his eyes surged again, as if it was connected to the demon world. He hated. The Immortal Palace had sent people to the lower realm and almost turned the ancient barren world upside down. Countless experts had died, and even his North Sea Dragon subduing hall had been destroyed. He hated. In order to protect him, The old celestial venerable resolutely killed the wind immortal hall master from the lower realm. In the end, he was forced to self-destruct to buy time. He still hated. It was useless for him to keep his body. He did not even come into contact with the immortal palace. Today, he was going to die here, unable to avenge the old celestial venerable and the others. Kill. The white-clothed youth activated his demon eye with all his might. A pair of dark lights shot through the sky, as if they were going to split the sky apart. Buzz, at this moment, the space in the distance trembled. Immediately after, several powerful pressures descended on this world, and then several figures appeared. The leader was a burly man who looked like an iron tower. As soon as he appeared, everyone felt the pressure and could not help but stop. It's the Patriarch. Someone's eyes lit up and he recognized him at a glance. At the same time, the early-stage soul formation elder of the giant demon sect immediately went up to him. Patriarch, why are you here? The giant puppet sect's patriarch scanned the entire place and finally looked at Yi Chen. He introduced him to the former. This is the Thunder Immortal Envoy of the Immortal Palace. He came with me to watch the battle. So it's the Thunder Immortal Envoy. Elder Chu was shocked. He bowed to Yi Chen immediately and said, Lord Immortal Envoy, we're just capturing an ignorant junior. It's our fault for troubling you to come personally. Yi Chen ignored what he said. He scanned the world and finally fixed his gaze on the white-clothed figure in the distance. At that moment, a strange light flashed through his eyes. Then, he said calmly, May I know which one of you is Shi Qianhan? Elder Chu turned around and pointed at Shi Qianhan in the distance. Lord Immortal Master, this is the one. He's extraordinary, Yi Chen nodded. Lord Immortal Envoy, you can just watch from the side. Leave everything to the giant puppet sect. The giant puppet sect's patriarch smiled and took a step forward. He looked at the white-clothed youth from afar. Junior, I'm the giant puppet sect's patriarch. This is the Thunder Immortal Envoy of the Immortal Palace. You have no chance of survival in front of us. At this point, he could not help but narrow his eyes and say coldly, If you know what's good for you, it's not too late to surrender now. Giant Demon Sect's Patriarch? Immortal Envoy? The white-clothed youth sneered when he heard this. You're just lackeys of the Immortal Palace. If there's a next life, I'll make a comeback and destroy all of you. Stubborn. The giant demon sect's patriarch snorted coldly and looked at Elder Chu. I'll give you an hour. If you can't take down this person, kill yourself as an apology. In front of the Thunder Immortal Envoy, if the giant demon sect could not even deal with a perfected nascent soul junior, not only would the Immortal Envoy look down on them, they would also become a laughingstock. Yes. Sensing the killing intent in the former's words, Elder Chu's heart turned cold. He immediately looked at the white-clothed youth and turned around. Brat, since you don't know how to appreciate favors, then die. End of this chapter. Chapter 1334. With that, Elder Chu immediately let out a loud shout and spat out a white blade from his mouth. It immediately turned into a white bone blade that was filled with dense baleful yin qi. At the next moment, his figure flashed, and he charged at the white-clothed young man like lightning. The killing intent in his eyes almost materialized. Buzz! Right at this moment, he suddenly felt a bone-chilling sense of danger coming from behind him. He immediately turned around and saw a 100-meter-long strand of sword chi that pierced through the sky. The sword chi tore through space and whistled towards him. Blech! Elder Chu did not even have the time to react or scream before he was sliced into two by the sword. Even his primordial spirit could not escape. The sudden scene shocked everyone. They looked at Yi Wushuang, who was behind Yi Chen, at the same time. Their eyes were filled with shock. The giant puppet sect's patriarch stared at Yi Wushuang with an extremely terrible expression. Lord Immortal Envoy, what do you mean by this? Elder Chu was one of the only two god transformation stage divine lords in the giant puppet sect, but he was killed by Yi Wushuang with a single strike. That strike was so fast that even he did not have time to stop it, causing the chill in his heart to increase. Even the white-clothed young man in the distance did not expect that to happen. He could not help but look at Yi Chen and the rest. He could not help but tremble when he noticed Yi Wushuang and Xiao He behind Yi Chen. His face suddenly turned extremely red, as if he had recognized something. Immortal envoy? Yi Chen suddenly scoffed when he met the giant puppet sex patriarch's gaze. Look at who I am. At the next moment, his body and face began to change at a speed visible to the naked eye. Within a few breaths of time, he had returned to his original appearance. The giant puppet sex patriarch's expression finally changed. He looked at Yi Chen in shock and anger. Who are you? Are you surprised? Yi Chen looked at him coldly. I'm the rebel from the lower realm that you mentioned. The original Wind Immortal Envoy and Thunder Immortal Envoy have already died in my hands. The moment that was said, heaven and earth fell silent. The giant puppet sex patriarch felt like a bolt out of the blue. His ears were ringing as he looked at Yi Chen in shock. Rebel from the lower realm. He even killed the Thunder Immortal and Wind Immortal messengers. What terrified him the most was that this person had changed into Thunder Celestial Representative's face and swaggered around in front of him, yet he wasn't able to see through him. With this in mind, the giant puppet sex ancestor tried to break through the void to escape, only to find that the surrounding space had been sealed. He roared as he activated his soul formation mid-stage cultivation with all his might, and his body shot into the distance like a bolt of lightning. At the same time, he roared in his heart. Thunder Immortal Envoy and Wind Immortal Envoy were both at the mid-stage of soul formation and had received the inheritance of the Immortal Palace. Even the two of them weren't this person's match, let alone this old man. This person couldn't be defeated. He had to escape and think of a way to notify Immortal Palace in the future. As long as Immortal Palace's experts took action, this person would undoubtedly die. However, in the next moment, his body could not help but pause. Yi Wushuang suddenly appeared in the void before him. The giant puppet sex ancestor's heart trembled, and he immediately changed direction, only to be met by Ancestor Azure Spirit. Following that, it was the heavenly ghost sex patriarch, Thousand Illusion Fairy, and the others who blocked off all his paths of retreat. The giant puppet sex patriarch was on the verge of vomiting blood. Old man Azure Spirit, good job. How dare you betray Immortal Palace? Go on your way, giant puppet sect. Ancestor Azure Spirit smirked coldly. Boom! The four of them attacked instantly. Yi Chen retracted his gaze and glanced at the cultivator counting money in the distance. Then, he turned to Xiao He who was next to him and said, I'll leave them to you. Remember, don't leave a single one alive. Alright. Xiao He grinned, and with a flash of his body, he immediately charged towards the thousands of cultivators with a cold gaze. In an instant, the world was filled with screams. Yi Chen carried his daughter and walked towards the young man in white step by step. Eventually, he stopped and said, Brother Shi, I'm sorry to scare you. The black energy in Shi Qianhan's eyes gradually faded, and a bitter smile appeared on his pale face. I really didn't expect Brother Yi to come and save me. As soon as he finished speaking, he fell to the ground. Meng Meng immediately became nervous. Daddy, what happened to Uncle Shi? Yi Chen shook his head and sighed softly. He's fine. He just used power that shouldn't have belonged to him and overexerted himself. Giant Puppet City. As the giant puppet sex patriarch and the thousands of cultivators present were killed, Yi Chen transformed into the giant puppet sex patriarch again and took control of the huge city. In the luxurious city governor's mansion, Yi Chen looked at Shi Qianhan, who had just woken up with a complicated expression, and said, Brother Shi, you've gone astray. Through the examination, he had already found out about Shi Qianhan's physical condition. He seemed to have obtained the inheritance of the devil world, and this so-called inheritance was definitely related to Shi Qianhan's pair of demonic eyes. That pair of demonic eyes was definitely the product of a fallen devil world almighty. It was difficult to change its ferocity, and it still existed. Astray? Shi Qianhan looked at him and smiled bitterly. Brother Yi, can you tell me what the right path is? What is the wrong path? Yi Chen fell silent. Seeing that he did not speak, Shi Qianhan mumbled, "It seems to be the sword sect of Shang Santian's Kunlun ruins. The heavenly thunder sect seems to be the righteous path to outsiders, right? But what did they do? It's like the Immortal Palace. They have immortals in their name, but what's the difference between them and devils?" He stared at Yi Chen with mockery at the corner of his lips. "I don't believe in the right path now. As long as it can give me power and make me stronger, it's the right path. At the very least, I have the ability to protect others. There's something wrong with the origin of your demonic eyes. If you continue like this, I'm afraid it'll take over." Yi Chen frowned and said, "Most importantly, if you cultivate to a certain level in the future, I'm afraid you won't be able to become an immortal, much less ascend to the immortal world. You'll only fall into the devil world, so what?" Shi Qianhan's gaze was firm. "If only the devil world can tolerate me, then I, Shi Qianhan, am willing to become a demon. I'll bury the immortals above the 9 heavens and suppress the demons below the 9 hells. That's all I have to say." Seeing that he had already made up his mind, Yi Chen could only shake his head and say, "What exactly happened in the ancient desolate realm? What are you doing here?" As soon as he said that, monstrous black energy surged in Shi Qianhan's eyes again. Finally, he moved slightly. "The ancient desolate realm has been destroyed." Yi Chen was shocked when he heard that. He then asked, "What exactly happened?" "Not long after you left, the Immortal Palace sent people to the lower realm." Shi Qianhan looked at him blankly and said, "I heard from the Patriarch of Hell that the 2 people who came to the lower realm were very powerful. They were at the late-stage soul formation stage. The many emperors thrown in the ancient desolate realm were no match for them. Many sects were destroyed and many powerhouses died." End of this chapter. Chapter 1335. The North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall was destroyed. All the powerhouses were killed. Only my foster father and I escaped the old heavenly venerable, the radiant patriarch, Fairy Yuqing, Zen Master Bao Xian of the Pure World Zen sect, and the rest were not afraid of death. They resolutely chose to fight the people from the Immortal Palace. At this point, tears of blood flowed from Shi Qianhan's eyes. "They're all dead, especially the old heavenly venerable. In order to protect us, he chose to self-destruct. What about the Patriarch of Hell?" Yi Chen closed his eyes. His heart ached slightly. "How are the Patriarch of Hell and my parents?" "Fortunately, there's the Patriarch of Hell." Shi Qianhan took a deep breath in and said, "The 2 people from the Immortal Palace split into 2 groups. One of them headed straight for the various forces, while the other headed for a Huang kingdom." He could not help but glance at Yi Chen. "The person who went to a Huang kingdom came for you. In the end, you weren't there, and the Patriarch of Hell fought him." "What happened?" Yi Chen asked. "Dead." Shi Qianhan smiled sinisterly. "That person was killed by the Patriarch of Hell, but the Patriarch seems to be injured. Moreover, the Empress of a Huang kingdom, Jiang Lei, is also dead." Yi Chen could imagine how tragic the battle was when he heard that. The Patriarch of Hell was only at the beginner stage God transformation stage, but he was able to kill a late-stage God transformation stage cultivator. Even though he was a tribulation stage cultivator in his previous life, he had to pay a huge price to achieve that. However, it was a pity for the Empress of a Huang kingdom, Jiang Lei. Before this, Yi Chen could tell the relationship between him and the Patriarch. Now that Jiang Lei was dead, the Patriarch must be feeling terrible. Thinking to this point, he could not help but ask, "What happened after that?" Shi Qianhan said in a deep voice, "After the Patriarch killed one person, the other person descended." In the end, the patriarch destroyed his body, and his primordial spirit fled frantically. It seemed to have escaped back to the immortal palace. Even though he knew that the patriarch was extraordinary, Yi Chen could not help but secretly gasp when he heard that. With his cultivation base at beginner stage God transformation stage, he had fought 2 late-stage God transformation stage powerhouses consecutively. He had killed one and crippled the other. Later, the ancestor endured his injuries and gathered all of us who were still alive. Shi Qianhan glanced at Yi Chen. Your parents are among them. The patriarch brought us to this firmament purple world through the passage that the people of the immortal palace used to descend. Yi Chen heaved a sigh of relief after hearing that his parents were fine. He then said, "Why were you alone then?" Shi Qianhan shook his head and said, "When we passed through the spatial channel, the ancestor's injuries worsened and he was unable to stabilize the spatial channel. He could only protect your parents while we fell into the rift. When I woke up, I found myself in Giant Puppet City." When he spoke to this point, his eyes became cold. "I believe you can guess what happened next. The Giant Puppet sect received the immortal palace's wanted order and discovered my whereabouts. As such, they sent people to capture me. Does that mean you've been separated?" Yi Chen's heart gradually sank. Although he was sure that the old ancestor and the others would be fine in the space channel, the old ancestor was injured. Coming to the firmament purple world, his life would be in danger at any time. Moreover, the firmament purple world was much larger than the ancient barren world. The 4 major regions were even more boundless. How could it be easy for him to find them so quickly? Right. At this moment, Shi Qianhan seemed to have thought of something. He looked at him and said, "When we entered the space channel, the old ancestor left a divine consciousness imprint on each of us." After saying that, he slowly stretched out his hand. On his wrist there was a black mark. The mark was very faint and it faintly flickered with a red light. "It's indeed the old ancestor's divine consciousness imprint." Yi Chen took a few looks and his eyes lit up. But what does this red light represent? Is it where the old ancestor is? No. Shi Qianhan shook his head and said, "The old ancestor once said that this imprint can allow the people closest to us to sense each other. The closer we are, the more obvious the fluctuations of the imprint will be. This red light should be my foster father and the rest." Hall Master Bei Yun and the rest? Yi Chen could not help but squint and say, "If that's the case, the most important thing now is to find Hall Master Bei Yun and the rest. Perhaps we can sense the old ancestors' whereabouts from the imprint on their bodies." He was very worried about the old ancestors' safety. After all, he was able to kill a late-stage God transformation stage cultivator and cripple the body of a late-stage God transformation stage cultivator. He must have suffered serious injuries. Shi Qianhan said that even when the spatial tunnel collapsed, he still protected his parents. In other words, it was very likely that his parents were with the old ancestor. As long as he found the old ancestor, he would be able to find his parents. Yi Chen stood up immediately and looked at Shi Qianhan as he thought to this point, "Brother Shi, there's no time to lose. Come with me now." Fortunately, there were still 6 days before the Immortal Palace's dual cultivation ceremony. He still had time. 1,000 kilometers south of Giant Puppet City. Shi Qianhan lowered his head and looked at the divine consciousness imprint on his wrist. The red light was getting brighter. Foster father and the rest should be in the south. It seems like they're 10,000 kilometers away from us. That's right. Yi Chen nodded and said, "It's 10,000 kilometers away. We'll be able to get there in half an hour. I hope they can hold on. By the way, Brother Yi." Shi Qianhan suddenly lifted his head and looked at Yi Chen. "After you left, there was news from the Tianfeng Sea area. Young Mistress Mu's grave was struck by lightning." Yi Chen paused immediately. After Mu Kaiwei died in the Jade Lake Sacred Ground, her body was escorted back to the Tianfeng Sea region and buried beside her mother's grave. But now it had actually been struck by lightning. Shi Qianhan looked at him and said, "Not only was it hacked, but even the body inside has disappeared." Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. Could it be that someone stole it? Even though he and Mu Kaiwei had already gone their separate ways, there was no longer any grudges between the two of them after her death. After all, the dead were the most important. Now that her corpse had disappeared, it caused him to feel a little angry. Not sure. Shi Qianhan said, however, "I have personally gone to her grave in the Tianfeng Sea area to investigate. I found that although there are traces of lightning striking the ground, there is an incomparably powerful vitality and spiritual energy. That vitality and spiritual energy caused many supreme medicines to be born within 1,000 feet of Miss Mu's tomb. It was so much so that even 10,000-year-old ginseng grew in the coffin." Yi Chen's eyes flashed indiscernibly upon hearing that. "I'm afraid it's not that simple. Also, Yi Dongli's body has disappeared." Shi Qianhan revealed another piece of important news. "After you left, his body was buried by the Yi family from the Forbidden Sea. However, it disappeared along with Miss Mu's body. Is it a coincidence?" Yi Chen squinted and mumbled, "Yi Dongli, don't tell me you're not dead. Is it time for the scheme you've set up for 10,000 years to come to an end? But why did you take Mu Kaiwei away?" Thinking to this point, a cold smirk gradually appeared at the corner of his lips. "If you continue to be my enemy, don't blame me for ignoring the bloodline relationship between us. P.S. Chapter 4 Explain the reason why I didn't update yesterday. The day before yesterday, I went back to my hometown to sweep the grave and caught a cold. When I returned that night, I had a headache, but I still gritted my teeth and wrote 3 chapters. In the end, when I woke up yesterday morning, I could not take it anymore. I just returned from the county hospital today, and I'm much better now. I didn't even have time to eat and insisted on writing 4 chapters. I'll update 4 chapters for now. 5 chapters tomorrow, which means 9 chapters in 2 days. It's equivalent to 3 days of updates. There will be more in the future." End of this chapter. Chapter 1336. South of Deng Province, All Heaven Region, by the edge of 3-Star Mountain. The mountain range stretched out continuously, imposing and majestic. It was verdant and lush, ancient trees that reached into the heavens covering everything. However, the ground was filled with a strong killing intent and the pungent smell of blood. "Kill!" Fierce battle cries scattered the clouds. Upon closer inspection, one would see that the ground was covered with figures. They were all wearing the same clothes. On their chests were the same black and white patterns. If there were outsiders here, they would find that all of them were from the Immortal Palace. Many people from the Immortal Palace stared at the narrow mountain peak in the distance with bloodthirsty and murderous intent. There were figures dressed differently from the Immortal Palace there, but there were only a dozen of them. However, their current situation was not good. Their auras were weak and their bodies were stained with blood. They seemed to be at the end of their rope. "Kill!" There were cultivators rushing up from the foot of the mountain, but they were all beaten back by these dozen people. Even so, if this continued, these dozen people would definitely be exhausted. Die! The Emperor of the Xia, son of Heaven Hua, killed a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator with a single strike. Blood splashed all over his face, and he took a few steps back. Feeling the exhaustion from his dantian, Emperor Hua Tianzi looked at the purple-clothed man not far away with red eyes. "Brother Baiming, there are too many of them. If this continues, we will die for sure." His heart was bleeding. The ancient barren world was destroyed. He watched as countless friends, family, and even commoners died in the hands of the Immortal Palace cultivators. At that moment, he realized that so what if he was the emperor of the Xia dynasty? He still felt powerless before the Immortal Palace. 2 people. The Immortal Palace only sent out 2 people, but the result was the deaths of Emperor Baiming, Buddhist Master Bao Xian, Ancestor Guang and others. He hated it. He hated himself for being useless. However, they finally escaped to the purple world. Before they could even catch their breath, they were surrounded by the cultivators of the immortal palace. Now, they were forced to this lonely mountain peak. There were originally more than 30 people in their group, but now less than half of them were left, and some of them were still dying. Hearing his furious roar, the North Sea Palace Master killed a person with a palm and roared, "Brother Hua, all of you leave. I'll cover the rear." "No." Emperor Hua smiled tragically. "I'm about to leave the ancient barren world. How can I leave you all behind? If you want to leave, we'll leave together." "That's right, let's go together. If worst comes to worst, we'll just fight them to the death. It's enough to drag them down with us before we die. I believe that Emperor Lord Yi will take revenge for us in the future. Kill. Rather die than surrender." As soon as he finished speaking, he received the approval of the remaining 14 people. Among them were the remaining Emperor's throne cultivators from the various clans of the ancient barren world. Their eyes were filled with hatred and madness. "None of you will escape today." At this moment, a clap of thunder exploded in the sky. Then, lightning appeared in the sky. As soon as he landed on the ground, he transformed into a man in a snow-white robe. The man's entire body was surging with lightning, as if he was an immortal who controlled lightning. "Greetings, Lightning Envoy." The people from the Immortal Palace who surrounded the North Sea Hall Masters group all knelt down on one knee. They were extremely respectful. Lowly rebels from the lower world. The envoy looked at the North Sea Palace Masters group with disdain. He mocked, "If you were still willing to be enslaved by the Immortal Palace, would you have fallen to this state today? Bah!" As soon as he finished speaking, an Emperor's throne cultivator behind Emperor Hua sneered, "Your Immortal Palace has enslaved our ancient barren world for 10,000 years. We've been sick of it for a long time and want to tear you all to pieces." "Well said." Another person said tragically, "We've been dogs for 10,000 years. So what if we survived? We've lost our Tao hearts a long time ago. What's the difference between us and the walking dead?" "Shameless boasting." The envoy sneered, "Today I'll give you all one more chance. As long as you're willing to kneel and swear loyalty to the Immortal Palace, I can spare your lives." "Swear loyalty to the Immortal Palace?" Emperor Hua chuckled in disdain. "You've killed so many people from the ancient barren world. I'll remember this blood feud. I only hate that I don't have the ability to destroy you all. Dogs of the Immortal Palace, there's no need to waste words." The North Sea Palace Master said coldly with a determined expression, "Everyone here is from the ancient barren world. None of us are afraid of death." The envoy's eyes turned cold. "Since you don't know what's good for you, I'll send you on your way." With that, he waved his hand and a chilling voice came from his mouth. "Kill, leave no one alive. Kill." As his voice fell, the thousands of cultivators present immediately surged out, each activating their true essence, magic treasures, and divine abilities. Surging power surged in the world. "Ah!" The North Sea Palace Master couldn't help but laugh tragically. "I didn't think that my Z Kunlun would end up like this after dominating the ancient barren world for thousands of years. However, if I can kill a few more dogs of the Immortal Palace before I die, my life won't be in vain. Kill." With that, he took a step forward. With every step he took, his aura grew stronger and the wrinkles on his face could be seen with the naked eye. Obviously, he chose to burn his life force. "Brother North Sea, I've always been unconvinced by you." The Emperor of the Xia dynasty laughed, "However, I have no choice but to accept your actions today. If there's a next life, we'll definitely drink to our heart's content. Dogs of the Immortal Palace, let's die together." In the next moment, his originally tall and sturdy body suddenly expanded several times, and he charged towards the Immortal Palace's lightning immortal envoy with a terrifying power. "Father!" Seeing this, the princess of the Xia dynasty, Hua Qianren, couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood and almost fainted. "Self-destruct?" The lightning envoy's expression didn't change as he watched the emperor of the Xia dynasty charge at him. Instead, he sneered, "It's just a last-ditch struggle." In the next moment, he stretched out his hand, and between his slightly withered fingers, a terrifying bolt of lightning immediately emerged. Swoosh! The emperor of the Xia dynasty, who was about to self-destruct, felt a bolt of lightning attack him. His body trembled violently, and he immediately lost consciousness, falling from the sky. Brother Hua. In the distance, the North Sea Palace master was already covered in blood and looked extremely old. He couldn't help but be furious after seeing this. The lightning envoy grabbed him from afar and looked at him with a cruel expression. "Killing you will be too easy on you. I'll make you beg for death." Right at that moment, a calm voice slowly came from the void. "How dare you bully my friend?" Chapter 1337. The voice was neither loud nor soft, but every single word reverberated through the world, exploding in everyone's minds. At that moment, everyone stopped fighting at the same time and looked around in shock. Under everyone's gaze, several figures suddenly appeared in the air. It was Yi Chen and the rest. The lightning immortal envoy lifted his head abruptly and stared at Yi Chen and the rest. His eyes were filled with shock. With his cultivation base, he did not even sense Yi Chen's aura. If Yi Chen had ambushed him earlier, the consequences would have been unimaginable. As Yi Chen and the rest appeared, Hall Master Baiyun, Emperor Hua, and the rest immediately recognized them. "Emperor Yi! Emperor Yi!" Voices filled with excitement and disbelief came from the dozen or so people. Some of them were so excited that they cried, while others roared at the top of their lungs. Yi Chen smiled at them lightly. Then, his gaze turned cold. He took a step toward the lightning immortal envoy with a flash. The lightning immortal envoy was shocked. He retreated immediately and stared at Yi Chen. "Who are you?" Yi Chen looked at the great Xia emperor in his hand quietly and said calmly, "Give me fellow Hua, and I'll leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, I'll grind your bones into ashes." The lightning immortal envoy's expression was extremely grim. He could not see through Yi Chen's cultivation base. There was clearly no spiritual energy fluctuation on Yi Chen's body, but he gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. His intuition told him that Yi Chen was not to be trifled with. His expression changed a few times as he thought to this point. He immediately tossed the great Xia Emperor in his hand to Yi Chen. At the same time, he retreated 3,000 meters away at an extremely fast speed. Then, he pointed at the great Xia Emperor. "Explode." In that split second, he had planted the violent thunder origin crystal that he had collected in the great Xia Emperor's body. If it were to explode, it would be enough to flatten a mountain. However, to his shock, there was no movement in the great Xia Emperor's body after the word "explode" was said. On the other hand, Yi Chen looked at him with a spurious smile. Then, he pointed at the top of the great Xia Emperor's head and forcefully extracted the violent thunder origin crystal. How is this possible? The lightning immortal envoy's expression changed suddenly. He did not expect Yi Chen to resolve his technique so easily. This person is at least a soul formation late-stage cultivator. A terrifying thought suddenly emerged in his mind. Without hesitation, he urged his body to flee. He knew very well that he was only at the soul formation mid-stage, so there was no way he was a match for a soul formation late-stage cultivator. Sizzle! At that moment, the world suddenly darkened, and a huge spatial ravine that traversed the void appeared behind him. The electric immortal ambassador had goosebumps all over his body. He turned his head abruptly and saw that Yi Chen had appeared behind him out of nowhere. "Did I say you could leave?" Yi Chen glanced at him calmly. He grabbed the air with his right hand and reached for the Thunderbolt Immortal Messenger directly. The Thunder Immortal Ambassador roared furiously. Terrifying lightning surged between his brows. However, before it could explode, Yi Chen crushed his head with his palm. Fresh blood filled the air. The thunderbolt immortal envoy's divine soul quickly rushed out of his broken body and turned into a small person. With a horrified expression, he tore through the sky and fled. Retract! However, Yi Chen's sleeves suddenly expanded as if they were being blown by a giant blower. Subsequently, a terrifying and irresistible suction force came, and the thunderbolt immortal envoy's divine soul roared as it was sucked into his sleeve. This series of actions was as fast as lightning, and it was completed in the blink of an eye. When everyone came back to their senses, they could not help but reveal stunned expressions, especially the people from the Immortal Palace. One of the 5 immortal ambassadors of the Immortal Palace, the mid-stage soul formation immortal envoy, was suppressed so easily? Run, run! No one knew who cried out, but it caused many people to completely collapse. They all fled into the distance with ashen faces. Yi Chen's cold gaze swept across those people one by one. Then, he looked at the Patriarch of Green Spirit and the rest. Kill them all. Yes. When the Patriarch of Green Spirit and the Heavenly Ghost Sex Patriarch heard this, they immediately erupted with their soul formation stage cultivation. They split into 3 directions and charged at the defeated people from the Immortal Palace. Not long after, the entire world was covered in blood. Corpses piled up like a mountain, and not a single person was left alive. Hall Master North Immortal and the rest watched this scene in a daze. They did not expect the situation to change so drastically. Yi Chen charged at the few of them and smiled guiltily. Hall Master Z, I'm sorry. I'm late. Thank you for saving my life, Emperor Yi. Hall Master North Immortal looked at him with an extremely complicated expression after he returned to his senses. His eyes were filled with sorrow. Who would have thought that the young man who killed the Jade Lake's holy master would grow to such an extent? An existence as powerful as the Thunderbolt Immortal Envoy, who made them despair and powerless, could not resist at all in Yi Chen's hands. He was as weak as an ant. Godfather. Shi Qianhan took a few steps forward and knelt heavily in front of Hall Master North Immortal. He said with tears in his eyes, "It's great that you're not dead." Before he came, he was extremely worried about Hall Master North Immortal. Now that he saw that the former was only injured and his life was not in danger, he could not help but cry tears of joy. Silly child, Hall Master North Immortal patted him heavily on the shoulder. Young master. As an excited voice sounded, a round and delicate body threw itself into Yi Chen's embrace. Yi Chen's expression froze. Subsequently, he looked at Jur who was in his arms and said, "You're already so old, yet you're still so shameless?" Jur blushed, but she still hugged him tightly and refused to let go. Tears gathered in her beautiful eyes. "Young master, I thought I would never see you again in this life." The little girl felt wronged as tears streamed down her face. "The old man is dead. He was killed by the Immortal Palace's palace master to protect me." There were 3 people she was most grateful to in her life. The first was Mu Kaiwei, who adopted her. The second was Yi Chen, who introduced her to cultivation. The last was the Patriarch of Light. The 2 of them were not related by blood, but the former treated her like his own granddaughter. He would grant her every request and even died for her. All right, aren't I here now?" Yi Chen shook his head and pushed her away gently. He then looked at her and said, "Don't worry, I'll avenge the Patriarch of Light." After saying that, he could not help but turn around and size up the remaining dozen or so people. Indeed, he did not see Fairy Yuqing, the Patriarch of Light, and the rest. He sighed softly and looked at Hall Master North Immortal. "Hall Master Z, do you know the whereabouts of the Patriarch of Hell and my parents?" As soon as he said that, Hall Master North Immortal and the rest rolled up their sleeves and looked at the divine consciousness imprint on their wrist. "They're still alive." Looking at the faint flickering light in the imprint, Hall Master North Immortal could not help but exclaim in joy, "Emperor Yi, they're still alive." End of this chapter. Chapter 1338. In the western part of the All-Heaven region, There was a winding mountain range that spanned thousands of kilometers. This mountain range looked like a giant dragon sleeping on the ground. Below the mountain range there was a quiet valley. The valley entrance was extremely narrow and could only allow 2 people to pass through at the same time. The nearby villagers called this place the Dragon Beard Valley. Because the valley was filled with jagged rocks, it was like a completely different world. If a normal person accidentally entered, they would never be able to leave. Adding on the fact that there were fierce beasts guarding the entrance, it became a forbidden area for the nearby villagers. At this moment, the sky above the Dragon Beard Valley was filled with dark clouds. It was as if the sky could collapse at any moment. Pressure, panic. At the entrance of the valley, there was a large group of people that surrounded the entire Dragon Beard Valley. Powerful true energy filled the heavens and earth, making one's heart feel cold. This group of people had gathered almost a third of the elites of the All-Heaven region. There were no less than 5 soul formation cultivators and countless nascent soul cultivators. The world was completely silent. No one dared to break into the valley because anyone who did would die a strange death. Even soul formation cultivators were no exception. Boom! Amidst this stalemate, space suddenly trembled violently. The space exploded and a hazy figure walked out of it. The figure gave off a dazzling light that made it impossible for people to look at him directly. He was as majestic as a mountain and many people couldn't help but kneel on the ground. No one could clearly see the figure's face, but they could feel that it was a man, and a young man at that. He was incomparably powerful. He was like a celestial that descended into the mortal world, causing people's hearts to tremble. The only thing they could see was his star-like eyes. Someone from the celestial palace. Thinking about this, everyone trembled violently and knelt down on the ground. They didn't dare to show any disrespect. This was because in the heavenly purple realm, in the all-heaven region, the celestial palace was a god high above. They ignored everything and everyone looked up to them. At this moment, a soul formation cultivator in black walked up and knelt before the young figure. He respectfully said, "Greetings, Your Highness." As his voice fell, the silent crowd was immediately stirred up a storm in their hearts. "Your Highness." That young great figure from the immortal palace, the only son of the immortal palace lord who was known as the #1 pride of heaven in the heavenly purple realm, Qi Huang. The young figure gazed into the valley. Is he inside? He was a man of few words and seemed to look down on everything. As soon as he spoke, everyone could tell that he was an extremely confident and powerful person. The soul formation stage elder nodded and said, "That's right, this person hid in there with his people. Because there's an old dragon helping him, we haven't been able to attack. Are you the South Mountains Dragon King?" Qi Huang seemed to be asking, but his eyes landed on the valley entrance. He said indifferently, "Southern Ridge Dragon King, you dare to help my immortal palace's enemy?" As soon as these words were spoken, they rumbled and exploded in the heavens and the earth like rolling thunder, and they even blasted the entire valley to the point it was on the verge of collapse. Everyone kneeled lower and lower, all of them trembling with fear. This was the dignity of Immortal Palace Lord's only son. When someone heard the words, "Southern Ridge Dragon King," he seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but inwardly suck in a breath of cold air. 10,000 years ago, the people of the Dang province saw a dragon fly into the sky, speak the human language, move clouds and rain, and call himself the South Mountains Dragon King. After the dragon accepted the sacrifices and worship of the people, it rode the clouds and disappeared. No one would have thought that it would hide in Dragon Beard Valley. Your Highness Qi Huang, the heavens have the virtue of cherishing life. Why are you so ruthless? At the same time, an incomparably old voice slowly came from the valley. Why don't you give this old man face and let it go? I promise that they won't be enemies with your immortal palace in the future. You refuse a toast to drink a forfeit. Qi Huang's eyes flickered and he said calmly, "Today, your Dragonbeard Valley will be destroyed." As he spoke, His figure flickered and his clothes tore through the void. He directly stepped into the air towards the entrance of the valley. "I'd like to see how you're going to stop me." His black hair was loose, and he had the aura of a monarch. At that moment, a giant hand suddenly slapped out from within the valley. The giant hand was like a dark cloud covering the sky. "Stubborn fool," Chi Huang snorted coldly. A void halberd suddenly appeared in his hand. The halberd shone resplendently and surged with divine light. It smashed forward with incomparable force. Dang! The world trembled violently and the void collapsed. A shocking streak of red blossomed, as if blood had scattered across the sky. Break! Chi Huang was incomparably terrifying. With the void halberd in his hand, he slashed towards the entrance of the valley. A deafening noise rang out, shaking the world. Boom! The entrance of the valley that everyone thought was indestructible was destroyed on the spot. Terrifying energy poured out like a flood. He was worthy of being the most monstrous descendant of the immortal palace. Countless people shivered in fear. In the next moment, Chi Huang wielded the void halberd and rushed into the valley in an incomparably domineering manner. "Follow him!" Seeing that one person had rushed in, the remaining people from the immortal palace looked at each other, and then jumped in with murderous intent. Killing intent filled the world. In the Dragon Whisker Valley, there was a thatched hut under a waterfall. Countless deer were happily playing outside the fence. If one looked closely, they would discover that outside the grass hut, there was a middle-aged couple staring at the deer in the distance in a daze. The middle-aged couple was Yi Chen's parents. Yi Hai looked at the deer that was sizing him up timidly. He could not help but think of Yi Chen and Meng Meng. He sighed softly. "I wonder where Xiaochen is." "Xiaochen arrived at the purple world before us," Wu Lan said worriedly. "Logically speaking, there should be some commotion, but why is it so calm now?" At this point, he seemed to have thought of something, and his face suddenly turned pale. "Old Yi, do you think something happened to Xiaochen?" Yi Hai immediately fell silent. He had witnessed the power of the immortal palace. They had only sent 2 people, but they had almost destroyed the entire ancient, desolate realm. Even the old ancestor was injured because of it. Thinking to this point, Yi Hai could not help but look up at the waterfall above his head. He was worried. "I wonder how the Patriarch's injuries are recovering." "The Patriarch has the help of old Mr. Nanling. He should be fine." Wu Lan could not help but comfort him. She was also extremely worried. Boom! Right at this moment, the entire valley shook violently. Yi Hai and his wife almost lost their balance, and their expressions changed at the same time. At the next moment, a green rainbow shot over and turned into an old man with white hair and long eyebrows in gray clothes. The old man's eyebrows were like willow branches that rippled in the wind. He held a dragon-headed walking stick in his hand, and his body trembled like a candle in the wind. "Old Mr. Nanling!" Yi Hai and Wu Lan immediately went up to him. Seeing the blood at the corner of the former's mouth, they could not help but ask worriedly, "Are you all right?" Chapter 1339. The formation I set up outside has been broken. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of the long-browed old man's mouth. He sighed faintly and said, "The people from the immortal palace are attacking. For the sake of your safety, you should leave quickly." Yi Hai and Wu Lan's faces paled when they heard that. "This old man is useless. That's all I have to say." The long-browed old man shook his head. Then, he looked in the direction of the waterfall and moved his lips slightly. "Fellow Yellow Spring." Before he could finish speaking, a seemingly weak voice came from the waterfall. "There's no need to say anything. The old ancestor already knows." Under the gazes of the 3 of them, a black-clothed youth shot down from the waterfall and immediately revealed the figure of the old ancestor Yellow Spring. At this moment, the old ancestor Yellow Spring's face was as pale as paper. He couldn't help but look at the entrance of the valley coldly. These people's noses are really like dogs. They found this place so quickly. "Old ancestor, are you all right?" Yi-hai asked worriedly. I won't die. The old ancestor grinned and then said to the long-browed old man, Fellow Nanling, thank you for taking us in this time. I won't forget it in the future. Old man Yi, let's go. After saying that, he waved his sleeve and immediately wrapped Yi-hai and his wife up to leave. Where are you going? However, at this moment, a deafening voice suddenly exploded in the valley. In an instant, a golden figure streaked across the sky, approaching from afar, and finally stopped less than 100 feet away from the old ancestor Yellow Spring and the others. It was Qi Huang. He was tall, slender, and strong. His entire body was wrapped in hazy runes, and his true appearance couldn't be seen. Only his eyes were as intimidating as lightning. His black hair draped over his shoulders, and he held the void halberd in his hand. He stood proudly in the world, as if he was overlooking everything in the world. Behind him, there were countless figures with powerful auras that turned into streaks of light that shot over and surrounded the old ancestor Yellow Spring and the others. Their killing intent almost shook the world. Yi-hai and Wu Lan's expressions were extremely terrified and close to despair. The long-browed old man's expression changed slightly. Fellow Yellow Spring, this person is the only son of the Immortal Palace's Qi Daolin, Qi Huang. Turns out it's that Immortal Palace old dog's child. Old ancestor Yellow Spring narrowed his eyes as he sized up Qi Huang. A cold gleam flickered in his eyes. Your father actually only sent you. You've truly disappointed me. Qi Huang's calm and tranquil face sank a little. The hazy magic symbols on his body became more and more dazzling. Faintly, a power that could make people shiver started to disperse. This was the first time someone dared to speak to him like this. Impudent. Without waiting for him to speak, an Immortal Palace expert berated, You all dare be rude to His Highness? The rest of the experts from the Immortal Palace stared at old ancestor Yellow Spring and the others with murderous intent, as if they were waiting for Qi Huang's order. Your dog is really good at barking. Old ancestor Yellow Spring ignored that person and fixed his gaze on Qi Huang. I know you wouldn't dare to come here alone. Call out the person I've defeated. Are you that confident that I'm not your opponent? Qi Huang smiled noncommittally. Divine light surged from his body. Back then, even though you killed my Palace Lord Feng in the lower realms and even destroyed Palace Lord Hua's physical body, you were also injured. I presume that you don't have much strength left, right? You can try. Old ancestor Yellow Spring sneered. His gaze shot into the void and his voice was like thunder. Hall Master Hua, your defeated opponent has been completely scared out of his wits by me. Does he not dare to show himself? As soon as he finished speaking, a sneer came from the void. Little Yellow Spring, do you only know how to use your tongue? Buzz! As the voice faded, a red-robed man slowly walked out of the distorted void. His eyes were like two scorching suns. As soon as he appeared, a terrifying heat was emitted from his body. Hall Master Hua, one of the 5 great Hall Masters of the Immortal Palace. Seeing the newcomer, the hearts of the people kneeling on the ground trembled, then they all knelt on one knee. The Immortal Palace had a total of 5 Hall Masters. Their strength was second only to the Immortal Palace Master Qi Daolin. They were all at the late stage of soul formation and were proficient in wind, fire, thunder, and rain. Some people were extremely shocked. In order to deal with an injured person, His Highness Qi Huang and Hall Master Hua had to personally come. You defeated opponent, you were lucky that day to keep your worthless life. Old ancestor Yellow Spring seemed to size him up disdainfully. A hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. I thought you would need a year and a half to recover your physical body. I didn't expect you to recover so quickly. Ha ha ha! Hall Master Hua immediately burst into laughter, shaking the surroundings. Then I have to thank His Highness Qi for finding me an excellent physical body and even taking out the Tiani Soul Water to help me. Tiani Soul Water. Old ancestor Yellow Spring's pupils shrank. I didn't expect your immortal palace to have such a thing. The so-called Tiani soul water was something that could help people recover. If someone's physical body was destroyed, they could use the Tiani soul water to recover in a short period of time. Of course, the Tiani soul water was not a divine medicine. It did not have the effect of reviving the dead. If the other party died because their lifespan was up, the Tiani soul water would be useless. Old man Nanling, how dare you take in a rebel from the lower realm right under the immortal palace's nose? Hall Master Hua looked down at the long-browed elder. Today is the day you die. The long-browed elder's expression changed slightly. He then sighed. Fine, looks like I can't avoid it today. Then, he took a step forward and charged at Hall Master Hua. Hall Master Hua, if you were still at your peak, I might be a little afraid of you. However, you've been injured this time. Although you've recovered your physical body, your strength has declined. Even if my strength has declined, killing you is still as easy as flipping my hand. Hall Master Hua smiled coldly and attacked. Roar. Under everyone's gaze, the long-browed elder let out a long roar and turned into a giant white dragon that was more than 100 meters long. Its enormous body practically filled up half the sky and blocked out all light, causing the expressions of many experts from the immortal palace to change greatly. A white dragon that's about to step into the mid-divine transformation stage? No wonder you're so confident to go against the immortal palace. Qi Huang looked around and chuckled. He looked at old ancestor Huang Quan and said, You're only at the early divine transformation stage, yet you can kill Hall Master Feng who was at the late divine transformation stage. You're quite capable. At this point, an unquestionable aura surged out of his eyes. I'll give you a chance now. If you're willing to submit to me, I can spare your life. Bastard, you're quite arrogant. Old ancestor Huang Quan immediately became furious. When I was dominating the world, your father was still in his mother's womb. What a pity! Qi Huang was not angry at all. Instead, he looked at old ancestor Huang Quan with pity. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Don't blame me. Chapter 1340. Let's fight. Qi Huang said softly. His black hair was scattered, and the void halberd in his hand immediately erupted with terrifying power. It was as if an immortal king had descended into the world. Boom! The void halberd tore through the void and slashed towards the old ancestor of Yellow Spring. Terrifying runes fluctuated violently, shaking the sky. The first strike seemed to be able to make the sky collapse. So powerful! Is this the number one genius of the immortal palace? Seeing this scene, the expressions of many experts from the immortal palace changed drastically. They had a premonition that even a trace of that terrifying power was enough to destroy them. Not only them, but even the intermediate soul formation experts from the immortal palace were also extremely fearful. You two, step back. The old ancestor of Yellow Spring had a serious expression. He then swept his sleeve and directly swept Yihai and Wu Lan away. Be careful, old ancestor. Yihai was extremely worried as he exhorted. He only hated himself for not having the strength to help the old ancestor. He could only be a burden to the old ancestor. Come at me. The old ancestor of Yellow Spring took a deep breath. Ignoring the pain of his meridians being torn, he forcefully mobilized his spiritual essence and turned it into a giant hand that slapped towards Qi Huang. Clang! The void trembled and the sound was deafening. After the two terrifying powers collided, a loud noise that sounded like a landslide immediately erupted. Thump, thump, thump! At that moment, Qi Huang took several steps back, and the void halberd in his hand trembled incessantly. The old ancestor of Yellow Spring only felt the web between his thumb and index finger go numb, and he couldn't help but frown. Qi Huang was indeed powerful. No wonder he was known as the number one genius of the immortal palace. His attack just now was equivalent to the full strength of an intermediate soul formation cultivator. It was enough to kill any intermediate soul formation cultivator, but it only made Qi Huang take a few steps back. The old ancestor of Yellow Spring had a premonition that even if he was at his full strength, it would be difficult for him to kill Qi Huang as an early soul formation cultivator. Not bad. Qi Huang's black hair fluttered in the wind. He clenched the void halberd in his hand and looked at the old ancestor of Yellow Spring with admiration. You can still unleash such power after suffering such heavy injuries. At this point, he couldn't help but shake his head and said, "Unfortunately, you can't use that kind of attack many times." Buzz. As the void trembled, Qi Huang instantly disappeared, tearing through the sky and appearing on the left side of Patriarch Yellow Spring in an extremely bizarre manner. His halberd swept across the sky and slashed at Patriarch Yellow Spring's left arm in a domineering manner. Is this the Void Rend? An immortal palace expert who saw this scene was first stunned, and then he couldn't help but cry out, "Your Highness actually cultivated this divine ability." The old ancestor Nether Spring's figure flashed in an unhurried manner, and he instantly avoided this lethal strike. After that, he opened his mouth and spat out a black flying sword that instantly transformed into a dark ray of light that shot out violently. The ghostly light pierced through the air, faintly carrying the intent of extinction. Qi Huang's expression changed slightly. He was very decisive and quickly retreated. At the same time, he waved the void halberd in his hand and slashed at the ghostly light. Boom! Terrifying energy immediately burst out, and Patriarch Yellow Spring was the first to be blasted away by such energy. Pooh! Scarlet blood flowed out of his mouth, and his face was completely pale. F***CKU. If I wasn't injured and exhausted my true essence, how could I allow you to be so arrogant? Patriarch. In the distance, Yi Hai and Wu Lan could not help but exclaim when they saw the Patriarch vomiting blood. Then, they could not help but rush over and help the old ancestor Yellow Spring up. Patriarch, are you all right? Wu Lan was about to cry, "Don't worry about us. Leave quickly. They definitely can't stop you." The old ancestor Yellow Spring had done a lot for them. They really could not bear to see the former die to save them. Patriarch, the two of us are just a burden to you. You should leave. We won't blame you. Yi Hai also shed tears, as long as you see Little Chen in the future and ask him to take revenge for us. What a touching scene, as a seemingly mocking voice was heard. Qi Huang walked over again and looked down at the three of them. Qi Huang looked at the old ancestor Yellow Spring as if he was looking at ants. "I told you, you're not my match when you're injured." The old ancestor Yellow Spring's expression changed continuously. "Are you going to force me to use that move?" He was a tribulation almighty in his previous life, so he naturally had countless life-saving methods. However, he would not use them unless he had no other choice. "It's over," Qi Huang muttered softly and swung the void halberd in his hand at the three of them. Terrifying energy whizzed down. Wu Lan leaned tightly into Yi Hai's embrace. The latter also had a look of despair on his face. He hugged her tightly and smiled bitterly. "Little Chen, you unfilial son. I'm about to die, but you're not coming to send me off." Looking at that scene, the struggle in the old ancestor Yellow Spring's eyes no longer existed. Instead, it was replaced by a hint of determination. He seemed to be muttering, "Fellow Yi, if I don't die, you must find 1,800 young models for me." Just as his finger seals were changing crazily, the space in front of him suddenly distorted violently. Subsequently, the wind and clouds changed, and thunder rumbled in all directions. Vaguely, a skinny figure shot out from the distorted space and appeared in the sky above their heads. That's the old ancestor Yellow Spring's movements froze. He looked at the extremely blurry figure in a daze. "Fellow Yi? It's that brat Little Chen?" Yi Hai, who was already in despair, was also stunned. Then, he could not help but smile bitterly. "Is it an illusion before death?" At the same time, Hall Master Hua, the long-browed elder, and countless immortal palace experts who were fighting suddenly raised their heads and looked at the figure in the sky. In the void, a thin figure stood proudly. He only extended 2 fingers and caught Qi Huang's void halberd that was rapidly slashing down. Qi Huang revealed a shocked expression. Before he could react, the figure flicked his finger lightly. In an instant, Qi Huang felt his arm go numb. Boom! The void halberd immediately let out a loud sound before turning into fragments that filled the sky. At the same time, it was accompanied by a torrent of spiritual energy that belonged to a spirit treasure. Catching the void halberd with his bare hands, shattering a spirit weapon with 2 fingers. The terrifying attack from the Immortal Palace's #1 genius, Qi Huang, was so easily broken? Blurred. Qi Huang spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale and shocked. The world suddenly fell silent. Yi Chen landed on the ground and looked at his father, Yi Hai, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Dad, how did I become an unfilial son?" "Little Chen, is it really you?" Yi Hai rubbed his eyes, not daring to believe everything. What he said earlier was nothing more than to vent the despair in his heart. He did not expect Yi Chen to appear as soon as he shouted it. Wu Lan was crying tears of joy. Yi Chen smiled lightly and turned to look at the old ancestor Yellow Spring. Under the latter's dumbfounded expression, he said with a faint smile, "Old ancestor, I heard your wish." "Ancestor, I've heard that wish of yours. Don't worry, I'll satisfy you after this." Chapter 1341. Above Dragon Beard Valley, the sky was filled with wind and clouds, and the ground was trembling. Under everyone's gazes, the skinny figure quietly stood on the ground. He allowed the monstrous storm to strike him, but he did not move at all. When he saw Yi Chen's face clearly, the Patriarch of Hell finally squeezed out a smile on his tense expression. "It's good that you're here. I didn't let you down after all." With that, his head tilted and he fell heavily to the ground. He seemed to have fainted. Yi Chen walked forward quickly and helped him up. He channeled some spiritual energy into his body, and his initially calm face had a hint of seriousness. Yi Hai walked over quickly and asked worriedly, "Shaochen, is the Patriarch all right? His injuries are severe." Yi Chen heaved a sigh of relief and said while frowning, "All the meridians in his body are broken, and his primordial spirit is almost exhausted. If I were a step later, the consequences—" Yi Hai and Wu Lan could not help but cry when they heard that. They looked extremely guilty. "It's all our fault. If it weren't for protecting your mother and me, the Patriarch wouldn't have—" "Shaochen, you must not let anything happen to the Patriarch. The Patriarch has done our Yi family a great favor," Wu Lan cried on the spot. Buzz, at that moment, the space shook violently. Then, several figures shot over and landed next to Yi Chen. It was Yi Wushuang and the rest who had arrived later. Even Yi Wushuang was shocked when he saw the Patriarch's miserable appearance. "What's wrong with the Patriarch? Take care of him." Yi Chen took out a medicinal pill and fed it to the Patriarch. He then handed it to him and said coldly, "I want everyone to pay the price today." With that, he slowly turned around, and his eyes were suddenly covered by endless anger and coldness. He slowly walked out and raised his eyes to look at Qi Huang in the distance. A cold smirk appeared at the corner of his lips, as if he was filled with monstrous killing intent. The temperature between heaven and earth seemed to have cooled down at that moment. Qi Huang looked at Yi Chen with a grim expression. "Who are you? How dare you interfere with the Immortal Palace's matters?" He frowned slightly. He felt that he could not see through Yi Chen. That was the reason why he was on high alert. "Your Highness, he's the rebel from the lower realm, Yi Chen." From afar, the Immortal Palace's Temple Master Hua rushed over and stood side by side with him. He stared at Yi Chen coldly. Immortal Envoy Feng died in his hands. So he's also a rebel from the ancient barren world. Qi Huang seemed to have thought of something when he heard that. He looked at Yi Chen again and said with a sneer, "My Immortal Palace has spent a lot of effort to find you. I thought you were hiding, but I didn't expect you to dare to appear. Since this Yi has appeared, there's no need for you all to leave. This can be considered a gift from this Yi to the Immortal Palace." Yi Chen laughed out of anger. A cold gleam appeared in his eyes as he took a step forward and charged at Qi Huang. Boom! It was this seemingly ordinary step, but it caused the space within 1,000 feet to collapse. At the same time, a towering killing intent soared into the sky. At that moment, Qi Huang's expression finally changed because he felt chills running down his spine as Yi Chen's aura locked onto him. He had only felt this kind of feeling from his father, the master of the Immortal Palace. Even the 5 hall masters had never given him this kind of feeling. "Your Highness, step back. Leave this person to me." At the critical moment, Hall Master Hua shouted. Then, he moved and took the initiative to face Yi Chen. A terrifying pressure erupted immediately. His late-stage God transformation stage cultivation base was undoubtedly revealed. "You're courting death," Yi Chen snorted coldly. At this moment, his eyes lit up and his killing intent surged. He no longer concealed his cultivation base. He wanted to kill this person completely. Boom! His punch actually stirred up a hurricane, accompanied by lightning and thunder. Its might was shocking, as if the world was collapsing. "So you're just mid-stage God transformation stage." Sensing Yi Chen's cultivation base, Hall Master Hua sneered immediately. "A mere mid-stage God transformation stage dares to attack me?" Boom! He also threw a punch forward, and it immediately turned into a huge fist wrapped in terrifying flames, Fire God's wrath. All the water vapor between heaven and earth evaporated. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled, and the void shook incomparably, accompanied by a terrifying true origin storm. Seeing this scene, whether it was Qi Huang and the other people from the Immortal Palace, Yi Wushuang, or the Patriarch of Green Spirit and the others, their gazes froze. One was a mid-stage God transformation stage defector from the lower realm, and the other was a late-stage God transformation stage Master Hua from the Immortal Palace. Who would win between the two of them? Especially the Patriarch of Green Spirit and the rest, they were forced to submit to Yi Chen. If Yi Chen was no match, one could imagine how miserable their fate would be in the future. Clang! With a loud explosion, the 2 fists collided heavily. Sparks flew in all directions, and their might shook the heavens. Buzz! At that moment, everyone felt a piercing pain in their eardrums, and their eyes felt as if they were burning. They could not help but narrow their eyes subconsciously, and even blocked their hearing. Otherwise, their eardrums would definitely rupture. Thud, thud, thud under everyone's gazes, Hall Master Hua's body seemed to have suffered a heavy blow as he was sent flying thousands of meters away. Then, he let out a muffled groan. The flesh and bones of his right hand had completely exploded, and hot blood dripped onto the ground, burning everything. It was a ghastly sight. On the other hand, Yi Chen was like a towering ancient tree rooted to the ground, unmoving. His white hair was scattered, and his eyes were so cold that they could pierce one's soul. His fist surged with a dazzling golden light, and his entire body surged with blood energy. He was like an immortal king descending to the mortal world, looking down on everything. Almost at that moment, many people's expressions changed. Even Qi Huang, who had retreated to the side to watch the battle, was no exception. Hall Master Hua was at a disadvantage in his first clash with Yi Chen? How was that possible? One was at mid-stage God transformation stage, while the other was at late-stage God transformation stage. They were not on the same level at all. Countless people were in disbelief. What powerful physical strength! Temple Master Hua could not help but inhale a breath of cold air after finally dispersing the terrifying force from Yi Chen's punch. He looked at Yi Chen again. "Now, I believe that you have the ability to kill that useless wind, immortal messenger. However, no matter how powerful your physical body is, you're still only at mid-stage God transformation stage. What can you do to me?" Boom! He suddenly let out a long roar, then pressed his palms together and roared, "Flame Dharma body, as urgent as the command, condense!" As his voice fell, boom, 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 endless flames surged out from his palms and gathered in front of Qi Huang, condensing into a flame shadow. The flame shadow was 30 meters tall. It seemed to be a mysterious creature born from magma, as if it wanted to destroy everything. Is this Hall Master Hua's flame Dharma body? When an Immortal Palace powerhouse saw this, he could not help but gasp. Rumor has it that Hall Master Hua once went deep into the Earth's core and obtained a strange egg born from magma in a world of magma. Then, he refined it into a Dharma body. End of this chapter. Chapter 1342. Hall Master Hua is getting serious. Qi Huang narrowed his eyes. There was a hint of arrogance in his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen again. Among the 5 Hall Masters of the Immortal Palace, Hall Master Hua is the strongest. I'd like to see how you die. Boom. In an instant, the gigantic flame figure walked toward Yi Chen step by step. Every step it took, a few huge pits would appear on the ground. One of them was charred black. How difficult is it to kill you? Yi Chen's killing intent was revealed. His hair flew in anger, and his eyes were filled with cold lightning. As he raised his hand, terrifying lightning poured out from his palm. Cloud with a flip of the hand, lightning with a flip of the hand. He seemed to be chanting death as he moved seriously, collapsing universe lightning strike. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, a sea of lightning gathered. Its aura was destructive, causing everyone's hair to stand on end. What's that? Seeing this, everyone's expression changed. Heavenly might. Brilliant heavenly might. Under such a terrifying scene, countless people felt insignificant from the bottom of their hearts. They could not help but prostrate themselves on the ground. Lightning technique? The Thunder Immortal Envoy's lightning technique. At that moment, Hall Master Hua's expression changed drastically. He never thought that other than the Immortal Palace's Thunder Immortal Envoy, there would be someone who was proficient in such a violent lightning technique. Die. Yi Chen's palm shot out, and endless lightning gathered into a giant lightning palm. It was like a cloud that covered the sky as it whistled down at the flame figure. Roar. The flame figure roared as its arms stretched across the sky, charging straight at the lightning palm as if it wanted to tear it apart. Boom. The lightning palm landed on its body, and a faint scream of pain exploded in the air. Then, an ear-piercing crackling sound rang out. Under everyone's gazes, the flame figure was completely wrapped in lightning, and its body fell heavily to the ground. Rumble, in an instant, everything within a radius of 3,000 feet was set ablaze. Hall Master Hua's face suddenly turned pale. Then, he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His expression instantly became extremely dispirited. His avatar was destroyed, and he was also severely injured. Deathly silence, the world suddenly fell into a deathly silence. He was defeated. Temple Master Hua was at the late Divine Transformation stage, but he still lost to a mid-Divine Transformation stage cultivator after using his Flame Dharma body? How is this possible? Countless people found it hard to believe. Qi Huang's originally confident expression froze, and his handsome facial features became slightly distorted. They're both in the mid-soul formation stage, so why is he able to defeat the Divine Fire Palace Master? Why? It was almost a roar. He, Qi Huang, had cultivated for less than 1,000 years, yet he had already entered the mid-stage of the soul formation stage. He was known as the #1 genius of the Immortal Palace and even the Firmament Purple Realm. Even so, he could only fight Hall Master Hua to a draw at most. However, Yi Chen, who was also at the mid-stage soul transformation stage, had defeated Hall Master Hua. It was almost unacceptable to him. It's over. Yi Chen's murderous intent soared. His sky-encompassing hand slammed toward Temple Master Hua. He wanted to annihilate him completely. Pooh! Caught off guard, Temple Master Huo was struck heavily. He let out a blood-curdling scream as his body was sent flying and collapsed in midair. Whoosh! His primordial spirit quickly escaped from it as if it was trying to escape. However, Yi Chen hugged him with his arms. Boom! A terrifying vortex immediately appeared in the air, and an irresistible devouring force swept out. No! Hall Master Huo's primordial spirit roared unwillingly, but it was instantly sucked into the vortex, and his soul was completely destroyed. At that moment the heavens and earth were dead silent. Everyone's faces were overwhelmed with shock as dense disbelief surged in their eyes. Dead. Hall Master Huo, one of the 5 Hall Masters of the Immortal Palace, was dead. Moreover, his soul had been destroyed. How was this possible? Countless people roared madly in their hearts. The Patriarch of Green Spirit and the rest, who were originally extremely nervous, were so excited that they almost cried out. They never thought that Yi Chen would be so powerful. With his cultivation base at the mid-stage soul formation stage, he killed Hall Master Huo in an incomparably domineering manner. Hall Master Huo! Qi Huang roared angrily. Before this, he had killed 2 of the Immortal Palace's Hall Masters and severely injured one. Then, the Patriarch of Hell killed another Hall Master and severely injured another. Yi Chen had killed another Hall Master. After careful calculation, there was only 1 Hall Master left among the 5 Hall Masters of the Immortal Palace. Moreover, this Hall Master was still in a half-crippled state. At this moment, he suddenly felt a cold gaze lock onto him. His body immediately tensed up. Then, he looked at Yi Chen, who was walking toward him, with an extremely ugly expression. As Yi Chen walked, his expression changed and he said, "You're the son of the Immortal Palace's master? So what if I am?" Qi Huang snorted coldly, unwilling to show weakness. "The Immortal Palace has underestimated you, and even the ancient, desolate realm. First, there was Yi Dongli, then there was the zombie known as Ying. Then, there was the Patriarch of Hell, and finally, there was you." At this point, he could not help but narrow his eyes and say, "I have to say, the heavens really care for you rebels from the lower realm." Rebels? Yi Chen sneered. "I like that name. What do you mean by rebels? You're someone who defies the heavens. Your immortal palace will also be destroyed by us rebels." Shameless boasting. With a cold snort, more than a dozen powerful auras rushed over from all directions, protecting Qi Huang tightly within them. These 12 people were all early-stage God transformation stage cultivators. They were all wearing the attire of the Immortal Palace, and all of them unleashed their cultivation bases. "Your Highness, leave this person to us," the sinister-looking old man in the lead said respectfully. Then, he looked at Yi Chen coldly. This person must have exhausted himself after fighting with Hall Master Huo. "I don't believe that we, 12 early-stage God transformation stage cultivators, can't kill him." The expressions of the Patriarch of Green Spirit and the rest changed when they heard that. Yi Wushuang's sword chi was like a rainbow. "Do you think we're dead?" The sinister-looking old man's expression changed when he heard that. If Yi Wushuang had not spoken, he would have ignored the former. Now that he looked at it, there were still Yi Wushuang, the Patriarch of Green Spirit, the Heavenly Ghost Sex Patriarch, and the 1,000 Illusion Fairy in Yi Chen's camp. "Step down." Yi Chen spoke slowly. His cold voice was bone-chilling. "I'd like to see if they can kill me." Yi Wushuang could not help but smile. "All right." Then, under everyone's gazes, he retreated into the distance. He carried the little girl Meng Meng and acted like he would not interfere. Arrogant. The sinister-looking old man was pleasantly surprised, but he was even more furious. Everyone, no matter how powerful this person is, he's still a mid-stage God transformation stage cultivator. Let's kill him together. Kill. As soon as he finished speaking, a black-robed old man attacked instantly. His divine consciousness was like a vast ocean as it surged toward Yi Chen. Attack! In an instant, the remaining 11 people attacked together, activating their spirit treasures and divine abilities. In an instant, a terrifying aura swept through the air, as if heaven and earth had just been created. The battle was about to begin. End of this chapter. Chapter 1344. I'm waiting for you. This voice seemed to have transcended reincarnation and came from beyond the endless stars. It was extremely profound and vast. The sudden scene shocked everyone. Clearly, they did not expect that someone would still attack Yi Chen at this point. It's the master of the immortal palace. The patriarch of Green Spirit and the rest trembled slightly. They seemed to have thought of something, and their eyes were filled with fear. Even the heavenly ghost sex patriarch and the rest were no exception. Too powerful. That sword strike just now had caused them extreme pressure and shock. Even a trace of the aura that leaked out made them feel like their souls were about to scatter. Yi Wuxiang let out a furious roar. His black hair turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye, as stunning as blood. Get out here! His white clothes fluttered, and his red hair soared into the sky. His eyes shot into the sky as he let out a godlike roar. However, after that voice, the world returned to peace. Even Qi Huang disappeared without a trace along with the blood-colored formation. He didn't descend with his real body. I think he used a flying sword to sneak attack me. Yi Chen stared at where Qi Huang had disappeared and could not help but sneer. This father and son pair are really cunning. One made me think he was going to fight with his life on the line, but he severed his arms and used the blood sacrifice secret technique in an attempt to escape. Even so, the master of the immortal palace knew that Qi Huang couldn't escape from me, so he chose the most critical moment to sneak attack me. Hearing that, Yi Wuxiang's aura immediately dissipated, and his red hair returned to white. He said, "Big brother, was that the master of the immortal palace just now? It should be him." Yi Chen's eyes flashed imperceptibly. Through that attack just now, this person's strength should be at stage god transformation. Stage god transformation. Yi Wuxiang's expression froze. Big brother, you've only recovered to mid-stage god transformation. If you fight him, I'm afraid there will be a fierce battle. No matter what, although Qi Huang escaped this time, I've figured out the strength of this master of the immortal palace. Yi Chen nodded lightly. Subsequently, his gaze echoed between heaven and earth. Eventually, it landed on the motionless immortal palace army. A cold gleam surged in his eyes. Kill them all. Then, he landed on the ground, carried Patriarch Yellow Spring into the mountain, and raised his hand to set up a formation to heal him. As soon as he left, the battle immediately broke out again. Ancestor Green Spirit and the others attacked one after another, doing their best to suppress and kill the immortal palace army. In an instant, blood flowed like a river. At this point, Ancestor Green Spirit and the others no longer had any misgivings. After all, they and the immortal palace would not rest until one of them was dead. At the same time, news about the Dragonbeard Valley spread like wildfire across the 4 domains, setting off a huge storm. Using a terrifying lightning divine ability to kill immortal palaces, Hall Master Hua. The 12 early-stage soul formation experts from the Immortal Palace have all been killed. He forced Immortal Palace's young master Qi Huang to break off his own arms and use a blood sacrifice to leave, not dying from Immortal Palace Lord Qi Daolin's fatal strike. This piece of heavy news swept across the entire firmament purple world. Who exactly is this Yi Chen? I heard that this person came from the lower realm, the ancient desolate world. He's only in his 20s, but he was able to kill Hall Master Hua, one of the 5 Hall Masters of the Immortal Palace. He even slaughtered 12 early-stage soul formation experts from the Immortal Palace. He's simply terrifying. Killing early-stage soul formation experts like slaughtering dogs. This person is too powerful. Even the villain wanted by the Immortal Palace a few days ago can't compare to him, right? Countless people discussed animatedly. The upper echelons of the various cultivation sects and cultivation families were all alarmed. This news was simply too shocking. For a moment, all the forces sent people to investigate Yi Chen's origins. One had to know that ever since the Immortal Palace was established, it had used absolute strength and supreme methods to suppress the firmament purple world. Whether it was the cultivation sects or the cultivation families, they all had to worship it and look up to it. It could be said that in the entire firmament purple world, the Immortal Palace was the heavens, and even more so, the immortals. No one dared to show the slightest disrespect. Over the past 10,000 years, countless people had tried to go against the Immortal Palace, but they had all died like ants trying to shake a tree. Even Yi Dongli from 10,000 years ago had only killed 2 immortal envoys from the Immortal Palace before he was suppressed by the Immortal Palace Lord. However, now, someone could make the Immortal Palace pay such a heavy price. How could this not shock everyone? This person killed so many powerhouses from the Immortal Palace, causing great damage to the Immortal Palace. He will definitely suffer the endless anger of the Immortal Palace. An old monster who had hidden from the world shook his head and said, "Can he change the situation of the firmament purple world for 10,000 years? The barren land of the lower realm can produce such a monster." An old ancestor from a force said in shock, "It's a pity. If this person could keep a low profile for thousands of years, he might really have the ability to shake the Immortal Palace. This person is dead. Fighting against the Immortal Palace alone is no different from an ant trying to shake a tree." Some forces who were not optimistic shook their heads. The firmament purple world is going to be chaotic. After a sect's upper echelon received the news, he could not help but take a deep breath. "From now on, my Divine Fist sect will seal the mountain for 100 years. No one is allowed to go out. My Sky-Severing sect will seal the mountain for 100 years. My Mu River Yuchi family will seal the mountain for 100 years. It seemed like this order was spread throughout the entire firmament purple world at the same time. Everyone expected that there would be a battle between Yi Chun and the Immortal Palace. In order not to be involved, they could only seal the mountain. However, there were also forces loyal to the Immortal Palace that headed to the Immortal Palace, as if they were ready to listen to orders at any time. Dusk Region, Kan Wu Qin family. What? Mr. Yi killed a palace master from the Immortal Palace? He even slaughtered 12 soul formation powerhouses from the Immortal Palace? Qin Tsang and the others who received the news were completely stunned. Whether it was the palace master of the Immortal Palace or the soul formation powerhouses, they were like immortals in the sky to them. Now, they were slaughtered by Yi Chen like grass? I didn't expect Mr. Yi to come from the lower realm. Qin Shui's beautiful eyes widened. Didn't the ancestral records say that the people of the lower realm are all barbarians? Why are they still cultivating martial arts? It's the Qin family's fault. Qin Tsang and the elders of the Qin family looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Before this, they had mistaken Yi Chen as the young master of the Qinling sect. Then, at the banquet at the city governor's mansion, Yi Chen's identity was exposed by the real young master of the Qinling sect. At that time, they felt that they were finished. Unexpectedly, Yi Chen killed the young master of the Qinling sect and killed the powerhouses from the 4 major sections. He even killed the Heavenly Ghost sect's patriarch and forced the Qinling sect's patriarch to submit. Even so, they still felt that Yi Chen was no match for the Thunder Immortal Envoy in the Dusk region. It was because the Thunder Immortal Envoy was from the Immortal Palace. However, before they could hear anything about the Thunder Immortal Envoy, they received the news that Yi Chen had killed the Palace Master of the Immortal Palace. How could they not be horrified by this? End of this chapter. Chapter 1345. All Heaven Region, Heavenly Mountain. Heavenly Mountain was located at the center of the All Heaven region. It was surrounded by dozens of spirit mountain ranges and was facing the sea to the south. Rumor had it that tens of thousands of years ago, A heavenly treasure fell into this place, and the celestial palace was born. As far as the eye could see, a boundless spirit mist suffused the mountain, and essence energy surged like dragons, decorating this beautiful spirit mountain that enveloped an area of several tens of thousands of kilometers, making it seem like a paradise on earth. Within the mountain, there was an enormous palace that looked like a heavenly palace. It was incomparably grand, solemn, and dignified. The atmosphere in the core of the palace was very depressing. If one looked closely, they would find a figure sitting on the ground. This figure was wearing a purple and gold robe. He had silver hair and his eyes were closed. Although he did not move at all and there was not the slightest bit of true yuan fluctuation coming from his body, the pressure that was faintly emitted from him caused the surrounding space to freeze. I miscalculated. As a murmuring voice rang out, the figure slowly opened his eyes. A bolt of lightning flashed in his eyes as if he was surprised. This person was the master of the celestial palace, Qi Daolin. At the same time, a hoarse and old voice rang out, "This child is outside of my divinations. Perhaps it's a trap set up by the heavenly laws back then." Heavens, Qi Daolin chuckled, and an aura that could freeze everything surged in the depths of his eyes. Didn't the heavens collapse to stop you all from invading the celestial burial planet? Could it be that she had already set up this trap before that? As he finished speaking, he turned around and looked at the stone wall before him. There was a ball of green light moving. Very likely. The green light turned into an ugly face. Don't forget, although the heavens are dead, they still left a chance of survival. Wasn't the girl I told you to capture her chance of survival? The incarnation of the heavens. Hearing this, Qi Daolin's eyes narrowed. My celestial palace has been planning for so many years. We can't allow this person to appear. Your celestial palace is in danger right now. The former said, I divine that Yi Dongli's corpse has disappeared. This person came from the same world as me, so he can't be underestimated. Qi Daolin frowned and said nothing. Then there's that Ing from a few days ago. He seems to have cultivated the Three Pure Ones technique. You didn't kill him that day. Once he successfully fuses with the Dharma body in the black coffin, I'm afraid you won't be a match for him. The face formed by the green fluorescent light seemed to be distorted. Lastly, there's also the man with the surname Yi. He was able to kill Hall Master Hua and even survived your fatal attack. I'm afraid his combat strength is on par with yours. Enough! Qi Daolin suddenly snorted coldly and said in a cold voice, Surnamed Mu, if I hadn't saved you back then, your soul would have been destroyed long ago. Now I've done all of this according to your request. At this point, do you only know how to blame me? Hee, the giant green face cackled. I told you long ago that your son is a good-for-nothing. Instead of placing your hopes on him, why don't you help me? Once I recover, I will be invincible in this world. Hearing those words, Qi Daolin seemed to be unable to bear it and closed his eyes. His face faintly twisted and struggled. Daoist Qi, you're a smart man. The giant green face's voice was full of bewitching power. Although you and I enjoy a lifespan of thousands of years, there will be a day when our time comes. In front of longevity, what is a mere son? At this point, he couldn't help but sneer. You still have less than 50 years of lifespan. If you can't step into the void training stage, you will die in meditation. Your thousands of years of bitter cultivation will go down the drain. Phew, at this moment the formation outside suddenly sounded, and then there was an extremely respectful voice, reporting to Hall Master, His Highness has returned, I know. Qi Daolin's voice was extremely calm as he responded. The giant green face on the wall said again, Daoist Qi, there's not much time left for you. Hearing that, Qi Daolin's body trembled slightly, then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and slowly walked out of the place where he cultivated in seclusion. In the solemn hall, Qi Huang, who was covered in blood, knelt on one knee and said while breathing heavily, Father, your son is useless. This time we lost more than half of the experts of the Immortal Palace. Since he was a child, Qi Daolin had been extremely strict with him, so he knew that his performance this time would probably arouse the monstrous anger of the former. It's okay, however. To his surprise, Qi Daolin smiled faintly. This time, I miscalculated, you can't be blamed. Father, Qi Huang couldn't help but look up at him, but what he saw was a gentle gaze like that of a loving father. He had never felt such a gaze from Qi Daolin before. Thinking of this, his eyes were slightly red, and he was a little moved. Come with me, I have something to say to you. Qi Daolin smiled gently, then slowly turned around and waved his sleeve. Immediately, a stone door appeared very abruptly. Forbidden area. Seeing this, Qi Huang's pupils couldn't help but shrink violently. This stone door was concealed by a formation and was known as the Forbidden Area of the Immortal Palace. It was rumored that it was the place where Qi Daolin cultivated in seclusion. No one had ever entered, not even him. Unexpectedly, his father wanted him to go in. Thinking of this, Qi Huang's heart was a little excited. He immediately got up and followed Qi Daolin in. Half an hour later, the stone door opened again, and two figures slowly walked out. It was Qi Huang and his father. However, if one looked closely, they would find that Qi Huang's temperament had undergone an earth-shaking change. If he had removed all his cultivation before and was gentle like an elegant young master, then the current him was full of monstrous evil energy. That evil energy seemed to be the reincarnation of an ancient demon. Qi Huang moved his body, then closed his eyes and revealed an intoxicated expression. The feeling of having a body is wonderful. Qi Daolin's face twitched incomparably behind him, and he said, almost dripping blood, "If this plan fails, you know what I'll do." "Don't worry." Qi Huang immediately showed a look of impatience. "Don't forget, you still have that brat's woman and brother in your hands. Under such circumstances, how would that brat dare to act rashly? I know you're heartbroken, but you also know that I originally wanted the child in the belly of the woman surnamed Su. He was the best furnace for me to possess." At this point, his expression softened and he said, "But that little evil creature's self-awareness seemed to have sensed danger, and it dragged on for nearly 2 years without being born. What should we do next?" Qi Daolin said in a low voice. The other party was right. The best furnace was the fetus. For this reason, the Immortal Palace had waited for 2 years, but the child had not been born yet. Very simple. Qi Huang grinned, and a touch of evil appeared at the corner of his mouth. The dual cultivation ceremony will be held as scheduled. Once I devour the pure Yin energy in that woman's body, I will definitely be able to recover to my peak. End of this chapter. Chapter 1346. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, time passed by bit by bit. Ever since the news of Dragon Beard Valley shook the entire vast purple world, everyone was surprised to find that there was no more news about Yi Chen. What puzzled them even more was that, after experiencing such a heavy loss, the Immortal Palace actually remained silent. It did not erupt with monstrous rage like everyone had imagined. Quiet, the entire Immortal Palace was strangely quiet. This made many people speculate if the Immortal Palace was afraid of Yi Chen's strength, so they held back, or if they had reached some sort of compromise. However, the quieter it was, the more people felt that a storm was brewing. At a certain time, it would sweep through the entire vast purple world. The undercurrents were surging, and killing intent was ready to be unleashed. In the sky above Dragon Beard Valley, the wind and clouds in all directions suddenly surged and gathered together. Terrifying lightning was brewing within. This earth-shattering commotion shook the surroundings. When countless forces in the all-heaven region sensed it, they all gasped in shock. A nascent soul cultivator is transcending the God transformation, heavenly tribulation. The ones who felt it the most were none other than Yi Wushuang and the rest. The patriarch of Green Spirit retreated into the distance and looked at the sky in shock. At that place, a black-clothed young man stepped out and pointed at the thunderclouds. "Scatter for the patriarch." Buzz. The void exploded as if it was crying. The daunting thunderclouds immediately disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, the sky was once again clear for thousands of kilometers. Congratulations to the Patriarch for returning to God transformation stage. Yi Chen's body flashed and he appeared in the air immediately. He stood next to the black-haired young man and smiled sincerely. The black-haired young man turned around slowly. His eyes were filled with gratitude when he looked at Yi Chen. "I have to thank you, fellow Yi. If not for you, I'm afraid the Patriarch would have died. There's no need to thank me." Yi Chen forced a smile and said, "In order to protect my parents you almost died. You even caused your cultivation base to drop to nascent soul. I've only sacrificed a 10,000th of what I've done, 5 days." He had spent a full 5 days to heal the Patriarch's injuries. He had even used up all his spirit stones and savings to help him step back into God transformation stage. That's true. When Patriarch Yellow Spring heard this, he immediately chuckled. There's indeed no need for thanks between us. At this moment, a light drizzle suddenly began to fall from the sky. The rain actually contained rich spiritual energy and the essence of the sun and moon. It's actually Emperor Molasses. Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell spoke in unison. Ah! The Patriarch of Yellow Spring then laughed out loud and said, "Fellow Yi, as the saying goes, misfortune and fortune depend on each other, and misfortune lurks within misfortune. After my realm fell and I recovered, I actually triggered the Emperor Molasses." At this point, he couldn't help but look down at Yi Hai, Wu Lan, and the others. "Old Master, hurry up and absorb it. If you miss it, it'll be gone. What is Emperor Essence?" Yi Hai did not understand. Even Ancestor Green Spirit and the others were at a loss. Yi Chen explained while smiling when he met their gazes. After a nascent soul cultivator steps into the God transformation stage and transcends the tribulation, there's a 1 in a billion chance that he'll touch heaven and earth and send down the Emperor Molasses. At this point, he added, and this Emperor Molasses contains extremely rich essence of the sun and moon, as well as spiritual energy of heaven and earth. If ordinary people bathe in it, they'll be able to cure all kinds of illnesses and prolong their lifespans. If foreign living beings bathe in it, they'll be able to gain wisdom in advance. As he spoke, many exotic beasts and plants in the valley immediately swarmed towards this place. Hearing that, Yi Hai immediately stopped hesitating. He pulled Wu Lan into the rain and allowed the rain to wash them. The little girl in Wu Lan's arms was extremely happy. The eyes of the Patriarch of Green Spirit and the rest turned red. They hurriedly took out a large cauldron that looked like a wash basin, trying to use the Emperor Molasses. Seeing that Yi Hai and the rest were actually using the Emperor Molasses as bathing water, the 3 of them felt their hearts ache as they received it. What a waste, what a waste! The Patriarch of Hell shook his head after seeing that. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. He then looked at Yi Chen and said seriously, "Has there been any movement from the Immortal Palace these few days?" "No." Yi Chen's gaze turned cold. "I thought the Immortal Palace would attack me while I was healing you. I didn't expect them to be able to endure it. It's been hard on you." The Patriarch of Hell smiled guiltily. "I know you're eager to save your wife, but you still chose to stay and heal me." Fellow Yi, at this moment, an old man with long eyebrows flew over and cupped his fists at him. "The Immortal Palace has said that the dual cultivation ceremony will be held as usual. Tomorrow will be the 7th day." Boom! Monstrous killing intent soared into the sky from Yi Chen's body like a storm. It actually tore all the clouds in the sky apart. "Tomorrow," he seemed to murmur as he closed his eyes. Deeply inhaling a breath of air, he slowly opened his eyes. A long time later, his indifferent and deep voice resounded across this region. "Then we'll kill our way into the Immortal Palace tomorrow?" As soon as he said that, Yi Wushuang, the Patriarch of Green Spirit, and the rest trembled violently before responding in unison. "This time, I'll personally accompany you." The Patriarch of Hell sneered. I'd like to see what kind of abilities this immortal palace master has to dare capture your woman. Yihai and Wulan were even more excited. Meng Meng burst into tears, and her tears could not stop. I'm finally going to see my mother. Wulan hugged her tightly subconsciously. On the last day, Yi Chen made sufficient preparations to save Su Yuhan. He taught the Patriarch of Green Spirit and the rest their abilities one after another. Be it the Patriarch of Green Spirit or the Heavenly Ghost sect, their lives were in his hands. He was not afraid that they would betray him. Meanwhile, under the guidance of the Patriarch of Hell, Xiao He finally stepped into God transformation stage. His strength had increased by more than 10 times compared to before. Initially, Yi Chen did not want Yihai and Wulan to follow him. However, the two elders were very determined this time, so he could only give up. That night, everyone was sleepless. That night, Yi Chen spent a lot of time with his daughter. Finally, the 7th day arrived. When a ray of sunlight shone through the clouds in the sky and shone on the ground through the dense forest, Yi Chen, who was sitting cross-legged on the top of the mountain, lowered his head and looked at his daughter who was snuggling in his arms. Yi Chen, who was sitting cross-legged at the top of the mountain, lowered his head to look at his daughter who was snuggling in his embrace. The little girl had fallen asleep when the sky was almost bright. There were still tears at the corner of her eyes. Yi Chen carried her and stood up slowly. His figure drew an extremely slender shadow under the blinding sunlight. He looked like a god. Yi Wushuang, the Patriarch of Hell, the Patriarch of Green Spirit, and the rest were already standing side by side below. Their auras surged into the sky as they looked at him silently, as if waiting for his order. Let's go. Yi Chen lifted his head. There were 2 balls of golden flames jumping in his eyes. Subsequently, they were covered by endless killing intent. It was time to settle all the grudges with the Immortal Palace. P.S. Chapter 3 has been updated for today. Thank you for your support. The climax has officially arrived. Allow me to organize my thoughts. End of this chapter. Chapter 1347. The Immortal Palace's dual cultivation ceremony had arrived. Almost the moment Yi Chen and the others set off from Dragon Beard Valley, the 4 regions of the firmament purple world moved at the same time. The news that the Immortal Palace was about to hold the dual cultivation ceremony had already been spread throughout the 4 regions by the 4 immortal envoys overseeing the 4 regions 7 days ago. As soon as the sky brightened, countless immortal sects and aristocratic families in the entire firmament purple world moved out. The upper echelons of the various sects brought congratulatory gifts and people straight to the Immortal Palace. Even though the news that Yi Chen had caused the Immortal Palace to lose more than half of its people, it still could not stop these people from making their decisions and moving forward. This was because in the firmament purple world, the Immortal Palace was supreme. Tens of thousands of years of majesty was deeply rooted in their hearts. Therefore, in their opinion, the Immortal Palace was not something a mere Yi Chen could shake. Most importantly, there were rumors that the woman who was about to marry the Immortal Palace's young master was suspected to be Yi Chen's wife. As soon as this news spread, even those forces who did not intend to participate could not help but mobilize their people. This was because many people knew that if this news was true, then the Immortal Palace hated Yi Chen for stealing his wife. Moreover, it was an open and above-board provocation. In other words, there might be a battle between Yi Chen and the Immortal Palace. How could they miss such a grand occasion? Tongtian Mountain. Before noon, the entire Tongtian Mountain was already filled with a sea of people. In the sky there were countless sword lights and flying boats that covered the sky. Nascent soul cultivators, who were usually extremely rare to everyone, could be seen everywhere at this moment, like carps crossing the river. As the void trembled, there were even soul formation cultivators passing by. Among the crowded sea of people, congratulatory voices could be heard from time to time. There were also all sorts of treasure lights that shot into the sky. It was the treasure light emitted by all sorts of treasures. Oh my God, there are so many people! In the sea of people at the back, there was a delicate and pretty young girl. After seeing this scene, she was shocked by the scene before her. Behind her, there was a purple-clothed old man who sucked in a breath of cold air. All the famous people and forces in the entire firmament purple world have arrived. Ordinary Jindan stage cultivators were extremely rare, and Yuanying stage cultivators were even more elusive. Now that he looked again, Jindan stage cultivators were as numerous as dogs, and Yuanying stage cultivators were everywhere. If Yi Chen were there, he would definitely notice that the two of them were Qin Tsang, the Kangwu Qin family's master in the Luoxia region, and Qin Tsang's granddaughter, Qin Shui. After Qin Shui retracted her gaze from the crowd, she couldn't help but look at Qin Tsang and said hesitantly, "Grandfather, do you think Big Brother Yi and the others will come?" "Shut up." As soon as she finished speaking, Qin Tsang glared at her fiercely. The former shrank her neck and immediately showed a wronged expression. Seeing this, Qin Tsang could not help but ease his expression. After looking around, he lowered his voice and said, "Girl, are you crazy? This is Immortal Palace's territory. If they find out about our relationship with Senior Yi." It was only after hearing those words that Qin Shui realized this. She immediately stuck out her alluring tongue with lingering fear on her face. "No matter what, I don't wish for Senior Yi to come. After all, there are too many powerhouses here today." Qin Tsang pondered for a moment and sighed softly. "No, Senior Yi and the others are few in number. Once they arrive, they will definitely become the target of public criticism." But, Qin Shui bit her lip and said worriedly, "But I heard that the woman who is about to hold the dual cultivation ceremony with the Immortal Palace's young master seems to be Big Brother Ye's wife." At this point, she gritted her teeth and said, "Big Brother Yi definitely won't sit by and watch his wife suffer, right?" As a woman, she naturally could not bear to see Su Yuhan being imprisoned, and she could not bear to see Yi Chen and Su Yuhan being separated. Qin Tsang's lips moved slightly. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard an ear-piercing howl coming from the sky. At that moment, the originally noisy Tongtian mountain immediately quietened down. Everyone could not help but look towards the sky. The clouds churned and swept through the world. The space there trembled faintly, and then a huge hole was suddenly torn open. Immediately, a majestic pressure descended from the sky. The current sect master of the Void Limitless sect of the Vacuum region has brought generous gifts to congratulate the dual cultivation ceremony. May the Immortal Palace reign supreme throughout the ages. As a deafening voice fell, an old figure slowly appeared in the sky. The figure wore a green robe. He looked middle-aged, but his sideburns were snow-white. His eyes were deep like the starry sky. Just his gaze alone caused the surrounding space to freeze. The world suddenly became deathly silent. Then, waves of unsuppressible gasps rang out. "It's the sect master of the Void Limitless sect, Zhou Dongxian." Someone's pupils constricted violently as he said in shock, "The Void Limitless sect is known as the #1 sect in the Void Limitless sect. Rumor has it that Senior Zhou is even at the late-stage God transformation stage. He's known as the strongest sect master of the Void Limitless sect in the past 10,000 years. As his voice fell, countless people were shocked. Late-stage God transformation stage. One had to know that such a realm, even in the Immortal Palace, was in existence at the level of a sect master. Pucci, at this moment a terrifying thunder fell from the sky, and then an incomparably deep voice sounded. "It turns out to be fellow Zhou. Please forgive me for not going out to greet you." As soon as the voice fell, a middle-aged man bathed in lightning suddenly shot out from the sky-piercing mountain. "It's Temple Master Lei of the Immortal Palace." Someone's expression changed as he said, "I heard that Temple Master Lei was injured by the fierce man known as Ing a few days ago. Could it be that his injury has recovered?" While everyone was shocked, they couldn't help but look at the middle-aged man carefully. They saw that the latter's eyebrows were full and his breath was steady. He didn't seem to be injured at all. It seems that the previous rumors were just rumors. The hearts of many shook when they saw this. Greetings, Temple Master Lei. Under everyone's gazes, the sect master of the Void Limitless sect, Zhou Dongxian, smiled. After not seeing each other for 3 years, I didn't expect Temple Master Lei's aura to become even more stable. I believe it's only a matter of time before you reach the peak of the Immortal Palace. Fellow Zhou, Temple Master Qi and Young Master Qi are currently arranging the ceremony, so they can't personally greet you. Temple Master Lei smiled politely and clasped his hands. I can only bring you up the mountain. No problem. Zhou Dongxian returned the bow. Just as he was about to lead the way up sky-piercing mountain, the silent void exploded once more. The sect master of the Mystic Sun region's Mystic Sun sect, along with the higher-ups, wishes the young master of the Immortal Palace, His Highness Qi Huang, to ascend the immortal Tao and have a son soon. The High Elder of the All-Heaven region's sky-severing sect congratulates. As these voices rang out, 1, 2, 3, a total of 15 figures appeared in the air. These 15 figures were all dressed differently. However, the oppressive might they intentionally or unintentionally emanated from their bodies caused even the sky to tremble. End of this chapter. Chapter 1348. Dead silence. The world was deathly silent. Hundreds of thousands of cultivators looked at the 15 figures that had joined forces, and their eyes twitched. That was because all of them were powerhouses of the various sects in the entire vast purple world. Among the 15 of them, the weakest was at the mid-stage soul formation stage, and there were even 6 at the late-stage soul formation stage. Profound Sun Sect, Sky Severing Sect, Jade Feather Mountain, Crimson Firmament Sect, Blue Thunder Sect, Wind God Sect. Someone trembled as he recited the sects that the 15 people were from, and his words completely exploded in the crowd like a heavy bomb. Is this where the Immortal Palace's dignity lies? Qin Tsang, who was in the crowd, looked at the figures in horror, and his scalp went numb. Even Qin Shui's pretty face turned pale. She pressed her palms together and muttered, "Big Brother Yi, it's best if you don't come now." Even she did not want Yi Chen to come. With so many powerhouses of the great sects and shocking old monsters that had not appeared for many years all coming to congratulate the Immortal Palace, it would definitely cause the Immortal Palace's strength to soar. Even if Yi Chen came, not only would he not be able to save his wife, he would also become the target of public criticism, unable to extricate himself. In the silent void, the Immortal Palace's Thunder Hall master bowed to the 15 people one by one before saying, "Thank you for coming, fellow Taoists. Please follow me up the mountain." After saying that, his gaze swept across the crowd below again. "As for fellow Taoists from the 4 regions, please follow my Immortal Palace emissary into the mountain in an orderly manner." As soon as he finished speaking, a dozen terrifying figures, including him, took the lead and shot into the Tongtian Mountain. When the people at the back finally ascended the Tongtian Mountain with great difficulty, the scene that greeted their eyes caused them to be dumbfounded. At this moment, the Tongtian Mountain seemed to have been arranged into a battle camp. There were ravines everywhere, and there were formations that surged with power. The terrifying energy that was being emitted caused everyone's faces to involuntarily turn pale. It was as if they were in hell. That's a formation? A sect expert was stunned at first, and then he cried out in shock. And it's a killing formation, a peerless killing formation. Why did the Immortal Palace set up so many peerless killing formations here? Could it be that they want to deal with us? Someone was shivering. Another person retorted, "You think too highly of yourself. If the Immortal Palace really wanted to deal with us, why would they need to set up such a powerful killing formation? They only needed to send 1 or 2 soul formation expert." Everyone. At this moment, Hall Master Lei, who was standing on the peak of a mountain, said slowly, "This formation is not meant to deal with you. You don't have to worry." As soon as he finished speaking, many people heaved a sigh of relief. Hall Master Lei swept his gaze over everyone and said indifferently, I believe everyone has heard about what happened to my immortal palace a few days ago. There are rebels in the lower world's ancient barren world who do not respect us. They even have the audacity to kill the emissaries of the celestial palace. His voice was like thunder, ringing in everyone's minds. One of them is surnamed Yi Chen. This person relied on his extraordinary aptitude to barge into my firmament purple world, committing many crimes and even killing countless of my immortal palace's experts. At this point, he could not help but narrow his eyes and said coldly, Therefore, in order not to affect the grand dual cultivation ceremony, this formation was prepared for this person and his companions. As soon as he finished speaking, the sect master of the void everlasting sect, Zhou Dongxian, immediately shouted, Since they are people of the lower world, they should treat us as immortals. How dare they offend us? Fellow Zhou is right. The sect master of the Xianyang region's Xianyang sect also sneered. The rebels of the lower world overestimate themselves and want to offend the heavenly might. This is simply throwing an egg against a rock. If the immortal palace has any needs, I will definitely help them. The sky-severing sect is also willing to help the immortal palace kill the rebels of the lower world. The sect master of the sky-severing sect bowed. And the blue feather mountain. And the crimson firmament sect. And the wind god sect. In an instant, the dozen or so powerful figures standing in the void all expressed their stance. The dense killing intent caused the void to freeze. More than 10 mid-soul formation powerhouses and 8 late-soul formation powerhouses expressed their stance. Shocking, absolutely shocking. Everyone's eyes twitched. They finally realized that this dual cultivation ceremony was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. I already said that the kid surnamed Yi is just a person of the lower world. Even if he has some strength, how can he shake the immortal palace? In the crowd, a leader of a force sneered. This time, the immortal palace only issued an edict, and all the experts of the vast purple world have to follow their lead. How can the kid surnamed Yi fight against them? That's right. Another person said, Does the surnamed Yi have the ability to fight against the vast purple world with his own strength? With the killing formation as a supplement and the strong as the main force, maybe after hearing such a show, he won't dare to come. I was looking forward to this person coming to the Immortal Palace's grand ceremony and putting on a good show for us. Now it seems impossible. If I were this person, I would definitely be extremely sullen. My wife is about to marry someone else, but I can't help. In an instant, the noisy crowd was filled with discussions. Some were disdainful, some were gloating, and most of them were regretful. When Qin Tsang and his grandson heard this, they were so shocked that they almost suffocated. Qin Tsang looked at the extremely pale Qin Shui and could not help but smile bitterly. Girl, do you see that? This dual cultivation ceremony is actually a trap, a peerless killing trap to lure out Senior Yi. Qin Shui's mind was blown. Her fingers were tightly clenched as she muttered, Brother Yi, you must not come. By now, even she did not have much hope for Yi Chen. The Immortal Palace was too generous. Not only did they use the entire Tongtian Mountain as the eye of the formation to set up a peerless killing formation, they even invited all the powerhouses of the entire vast purple world to guard this place. Just as her grandfather had said, this was a trap to kill Yi Chen. At the same time, in the air, Hall Master Lei stood with his hands behind his back. He raised his head to look at Zhou Dongxian and the rest and said indifferently, Fellow Zhou, I'll be troubling you. Hall Master Lei, you're too polite. Zhou Dongxian could not help but shake his head and smile. In my opinion, after that Yi brat found out that we're guarding this place, he's probably scared out of his wits. How would he dare to come? That's right. The sky-severing sect master nodded as well. Even if he dares to come, he won't be able to leave alive. The rest nodded while sneering. To them, Yi Chen's combat strength was at most at the late-stage god transformation stage. Meanwhile, they had more than 10 early-stage God transformation stage cultivators and 8 late-stage God transformation stage cultivators, including Hall Master Lei. Coupled with the peerless killing formation, with such a facelift, even a cultivator at the peak of the soul formation stage would be able to fight against him. Hearing everyone's stance, Hall Master Lei looked into the sky and a cruel smile appeared on his lips. Yi, in order to deal with you, the Immortal Palace has set up many methods. You must come. Don't disappoint us. End of this chapter. Chapter 1349. Almost at the same time, in an extremely hidden purple bamboo forest on Tongtian Mountain that was unknown to outsiders, spiritual energy was like mist, and the purple bamboo forest formed a green-tiled courtyard deep in the purple bamboo forest. At that moment a melodious tune came. It was deep like a cuckoo's cry or a parting of life and death. It was filled with helplessness and sorrow. There was a stone pavilion next to the green-tiled courtyard. A skinny lady was sitting in the pavilion at the moment. There was a guqin on the stone table before her. The lady's slender fingers plucked the guqin softly. Subsequently, an extremely deep and mellow tune came out. If one were to look closely, the lady's 10 slender fingers had been cut by the strings. The strings were dyed red with terrifying blood. Su Yuhan looked outside the bamboo forest blankly. Sorrow gathered in her beautiful eyes. Xiaoqin, I really can't wait for you. Her face was much paler than before. There was a change in her appearance compared to 2 years ago. She seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life. Half of her hair that hung behind her shoulders had turned white too. It's the 7th day. My time has come. I'm useless. I've almost exhausted all my vitality, but I still can't understand the last formation. I can't get out of this cage. Su Yuhan ignored her slender fingers that were dripping with blood. She seemed to want to finish the last song with all her might. Even if I die, I won't do anything to let you down. It's a pity for our son. She looked down slightly at her protruding tummy. She could not hold back her tears eventually. That's good too. I'll bring my son along. We can take care of each other on the way to hell. The sorrow in her eyes grew. Xiaoqin, if I'm not around anymore, you must take good care of Mengmeng and raise her. At that moment she frowned and groaned in pain. Child, do you understand what I said? I can't bear to let you go too. Su Yuhan shook her head lightly. I can't bear to let you go. I can't bear to let your father go. I can't bear to let your sister go. I can't bear to let your grandparents go. I can't bear to let everything go, but what can I do? She smiled sadly as she spoke to this point. If I don't choose to do that, how can I face your father in the future? How can I face everyone? As soon as she finished speaking, she groaned again. In her stomach, a childish voice that wanted to cry but had no tears rang out. My dear mother, don't do anything stupid. I've sensed it. That damned old man of mine is here, and he's on his way. If you die, that damned old man of mine will commit suicide. This young master is in such a difficult situation. My biological mother doesn't love me, and my biological father doesn't love me. Who will save this baby, however? No matter how loud he screamed, Su Yuhan could not sense anything at all. She was still telling him everything in despair. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Suddenly, a faint sound rang out in the originally quiet purple bamboo forest. In an instant, the endless purple bamboo forest that was like a cage suddenly opened up a path. A young man dressed in Confucian robes slowly walked over. He looked like an elegant young master. The young man's face was like jade, and he had facial features that would make countless women in this world jealous. The person who came was Qi Huang. At the same time, Su Yuhan's music paused. Her face turned pale, and she looked at Qi Huang with her eyelashes trembling. Qi Huang ignored Su Yuhan's gaze and walked to her slowly. He could not help but smile lightly as he looked at her breathtakingly beautiful face. Ms. Su, have you had a good rest recently? However, Su Yuhan acted like she did not hear him. Qi Huang did not mind. After a faint smile, he noticed her fingers that were stained with blood. He could not help but feel sorry for her. What a pair of good hands! What a pity! He was about to grab the pair of hands after saying that. Get lost! Su Yuhan stood up all of a sudden and glared at him coldly. If you dare to touch me, I'll kill myself right in front of you. The resolute look in her eyes was moving. Kill yourself. Qi Huang chuckled all of a sudden. You only have nascent soul cultivation base. If I really want to touch you, you won't even have the chance to kill yourself. The space between his brows was filled with evil. Although he tried to hide it, Su Yuhan noticed it. She said immediately, You're not Qi Huang. Who are you? How did you find out? A hint of surprise appeared on Qi Huang's face. He subsequently grinned. The piece of trash that you're talking about is dead now. Meanwhile, his body is mine now. Are you surprised? Su Yuhan said nothing, but she was secretly shocked. Clearly, she did not expect the Immortal Palace's young master to be possessed. Such a calm personality. Qi Huang shook his head in disappointment seeing that she was expressionless. Let me guess. You've been thinking about breaking out of the purple bamboo forest's formation, haven't you? However, it's a pity that you don't know that the last formation was set up by me. Not to mention you, even a spatial tempering stage cultivator wouldn't be able to break it. Su Yuhan's expression finally changed as soon as he was done speaking. The confinement formation used the purple bamboo forest as its base. There were a total of 36,000 combination formations. Before this, she had spent almost 2 years to comprehend 35,999 combination formations. There was only one left now. She did not expect it to be set up by the other party. Qi Huang finally smiled in satisfaction. I can also tell you that your man is already on his way to save you. Su Yuhan's body froze when she heard that. She then said blankly, What's the point of lying to me at this point? Your man's name is Yi Chen, right? Qi Huang said again, He's very powerful. He killed a Mastery Stage God Transformation Stage powerhouse with his cultivation base at the Intermediate Stage God Transformation Stage. He even killed more than 10 Intermediate Stage God Transformation Stage powerhouses. At that moment, Su Yuhan's delicate body trembled. Her beautiful eyes were filled with joy that she had not seen for a long time. He's here to save you. If I were you, I'd give up the thought of committing suicide. Perhaps he can save you, Qi Huang chuckled as if he was mocking her. On Tongtian Mountain, the sun shone brightly. Hundreds of thousands of cultivators held their breaths as they looked at the entire sky. However, there was still no movement after waiting for an hour under the scorching sun. It's almost time. Why isn't Yi here yet? Don't tell me he's really scared? Someone couldn't bear the loneliness and said, I'm afraid that's the case. His words were immediately agreed by the others. After all, even if he knows that it's a dead end, he can't possibly barge in, right? Ha ha, he's a native of the lower realm after all. Temple Master Lei, who was in the sky, sneered. However, Yi can even endure the hatred of stealing his wife. Perhaps he can really take a peek at immortality. Ha! His teasing immediately made the other God Transformation Stage powerhouses laugh out loud. They seemed to be sure that Yi Chen really did not dare to come. On the other hand, the sect master of the Void Everlasting Sect, Zhou Dongxian, shook his head and said, Everyone, let's disperse. We're making a mountain out of a molehill for someone who's afraid of death. Just as everyone was about to rush to the main hall, the space above everyone's heads suddenly trembled violently. Then, there was a thunderous explosion. In an instant, the weather changed and heaven and earth shook. At that moment, everyone could not help but raise their head. An indescribable pressure suddenly filled the sky. It whistled over from the distant horizon. The pressure was so great that it could be said to be earth-shattering. At that moment, even Qin Tsang, who was in the crowd, could not help but look at the sky in shock. He cried out involuntarily, He's here, P.S. Chapter 3 has been updated today. More updates tomorrow. End of this chapter. Chapter 1350. Boom, boom, boom. In the vast sky, the wind and clouds rolled back, and the world changed. The clouds quickly gathered, turning from white to black, and finally condensing into a resplendent purple. It was lightning, endless lightning, carrying the might of heaven and earth as it charged in the direction of Tongtian Mountain. He's here, he's really here. Qin Tsang stared blankly at the horizon, looking at the end of the endless pressure. At that moment, his heart became incomparably shocked. At this moment, not only him, but all the hundreds of thousands of people present suddenly raised their heads and stared blankly in that direction. In the vast thunderclouds, a peerless giant dragon broke through the thunderclouds and charged over. Endless ferocious aura emanated from its eyes. While everyone was shocked, their gazes were all attracted by the thin figure on the black dragon. It was a young man. His white hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyebrows were sharp. His face was expressionless, and he held a 6-year-old girl in his left hand. They seemed to be father and daughter. Over a dozen figures stood behind him, and all of them had unleashed their auras, causing the surrounding space to flutter. Boundless pressure assaulted them. It was dignity, killing intent, and even more so, monstrous rage. Countless people were shocked, and their expressions changed drastically. They felt like they could not stabilize their bodies, as if they were about to kneel on the ground uncontrollably. It was also at that moment that the Thunder Hall Master of the Immortal Palace suddenly raised his eyes and looked straight at the figure. His pupils constricted violently. Even though he, the Thunder Hall Master of the Immortal Palace, was known to be the most proficient in lightning techniques, he knew that he could not change the weather. This was the power of the laws of heaven and earth. Without becoming a true immortal, how could he exercise the laws of heaven and earth? Is it an illusion? The Thunder Hall Master's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. It was not just him. The sect master of the Void Everlasting Sect, Zhou Dongxian, who was beside him, could not help but inhale a breath of cold air when he saw the figure riding the dragon. For some reason, the true origin energy in his body began to tremble uncontrollably as Yi Chen appeared. He could not be clearer about this. It meant that Yi Chen posed an extreme threat to him. Isn't he at mid-god transformation stage? Thinking to there, Zhou Dongxian was inwardly shocked. Why does it give me the aura of a perfected soul formation cultivator? At the same time, the dozen or so soul formation powerhouses standing in the air, including the Severing Sky Sect's sect master, stared straight at Yi Chen. Shock, there was no one who was not shocked. Before this, they might have heard of Yi Chen's achievements. However, to them, Yi Chen's combat strength was at most at the advanced god transformation stage. However, the deterrence that Yi Chen gave them at that moment was not as simple as being at the late-stage god transformation stage. He's Yi Chen? The person from the lower realm who caused the Immortal Palace to lose a palace master and more than 10 early-stage soul formation experts? Unbelievable, simply unbelievable. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe that a person with such an aura came from the lower realm. In the silent world, countless voices rose and fell and interweaved in the crowd, seeming to be in an uproar. The black dragon stopped when it was less than 3,000 meters away from Tongtian Mountain. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Chen let go of his daughter's hand and took a step forward. His eyes that were as deep as the stars looked at the entire world. Qin Shui, who was in the crowd below, looked at Yi Chen up close. She was shocked and surprised. She wanted to greet him by instinct. Yi, however, before she could say anything, Qin Tsang performed a silent meditation. The latter said with a trembling voice, "Girl, don't act recklessly. Otherwise, the Kanwu Qin family will face a great disaster." Qin Shui could only look at Yi Chen with all her might. A few seconds later, an extremely calm voice came from Yi Chen's mouth. 15 intermediate stage soul formation cultivators and 8 advanced stage soul formation cultivators are here to welcome me. What a grand lineup! Welcome? Hearing that, Hall Master Lei smirked coldly and stepped forward. He looked at him and said, "I'm the Immortal Palace's Hall Master Lei. If outsiders don't have an invitation from the Immortal Palace, they are not allowed to enter the mountain to participate in the dual cultivation ceremony." Participate in the dual cultivation ceremony? Yi Chen stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at him coldly and said, "You're wrong. I'm not here to participate in the dual cultivation ceremony." At this point, his gaze turned cold, and a dense aura immediately surged out. "I'm here to flatten your immortal palace today and kill everything." As soon as he finished speaking, at first, the world was deathly silent for a moment, and then waves of clamor that were like stormy waves erupted. Even though they already knew Yi Chen's purpose for coming here, they still did not expect Yi Chen to dare to say such words under such circumstances. Shameless boasting! On the ground, a perfected nascent soul cultivator from the Immortal Palace sneered, "You think you can destroy my Immortal Palace with just a bunch of useless people like you?" He thought that Yi Chen would not be able to leave alive today. With Hall Master Lei and the rest by his side, he said those words fearlessly. As soon as he finished speaking, the other Immortal Palace cultivators immediately cheered and praised him. The former was getting more and more pleased with himself. However, in the next moment, a large hand suddenly pressed down on him from the sky, directly crushing the space where he was. "Idiot, do you think you have the right to speak?" The Patriarch of Hell chuckled. His hand swept across the sky, covering a radius of several dozen meters, like a cloud that covered the sky. The perfected nascent soul cultivator's face immediately revealed shock. "Bastard!" When an Immortal Palace soul formation cultivator saw this, he immediately shouted coldly and quickly made a move. He turned into a large hand and reached out towards the former, clearly wanting to save him. Scram! The Patriarch of Hell slapped his hand heavily, directly shattering the former's attack. Then, he slapped down, forcefully smashing the perfected nascent soul cultivator into meat paste. Dead silence. The world suddenly fell into a dead silence. Everyone had looks of disbelief on their faces. Facing such a lineup from the Immortal Palace, Yi Chen and the rest actually dared to take the initiative to attack and kill the people from the Immortal Palace? Impudent! How dare you? At that moment, Hall Master Lei and the rest were furious. More than 20 terrifying auras immediately erupted in the sky. That might directly sealed off the entire world. Is the battle about to begin? Many people were incomparably shocked. "A god war, a god war!" A mighty figure said with a shocked expression, "Our violet world has never seen such a grand scene like today." Hall Master Lei's entire body was bathed in lightning. He stared at Yi Chen with a murderous aura. "Yi, the Immortal Palace will give you another chance. Since it's not easy for you to cultivate, as long as you're willing to submit to the Immortal Palace, kneel outside the Tongtian Mountain, and beg for the Immortal Palace's forgiveness, we might spare your life." He was high and mighty like a god. His tone was filled with extreme arrogance and solemnity, as if everything was under his control. However, Yi Chen could not be bothered to waste his breath. He raised his arm lightly and spat softly. "Kill!" End of this chapter. Chapter 1351. Kill. The moment the word kill was said, it was like a demonic sound of death, surging and lingering in everyone's minds. All of a sudden, the temperature between heaven and earth froze, and it was replaced by a monstrous murderous aura and endless killing intent. It was as if winter had arrived, and fallen leaves flew everywhere. Boom! At that moment, a divine light suddenly erupted from Yi Chen's body. His entire body shone with golden light like an ancient god that had awakened. He activated his body with all his might and took a step forward. Then, he gently stepped on the entire Tongtian Mountain. Boom! In an instant, the entire Tongtian mountain trembled violently. Endless mountain rocks, earth, and trees collapsed, as if someone had stepped on the world. At that moment, everyone was shocked, and their expressions changed. He really dares to attack? Even Hall Master Lei and the rest could not help but be shocked. One had to know that Yi Chen's camp did not have a single late-stage soul formation cultivator, but there were 8 in the Immortal Palace's camp. Not only them, but even the crowd on the ground gasped at the sight of this. Kill. The Patriarch of Hell chuckled. Today, I'll destroy this damned Immortal Palace and destroy their orthodoxy. Kill all the men and let me enjoy all the women. With that, he turned into a long rainbow with a monstrous aura and joined Yi Chen's camp directly. Fellow Yi, leave these 8 late-stage soul formation cultivators to the Patriarch. Can you do it? Yi Chen was stunned. Meeting his gaze, the Patriarch of Hell could not help but grit his teeth and say, I have to do it even if I can't. I won't die. Don't worry. You and Wushuang will deal with the mid-stage soul formation cultivators. Yi Chen waved his sleeve and sent him flying directly. His cold voice sounded, As for these 8 pieces of trash, leave them to me. Swoosh. Yi Chen charged at Hall Master Lei and the rest of the 8 of them with a single move. His mighty voice shook the surroundings. Immortal Palace's dogs, accept your death. Seeing this scene, everyone's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Someone cried out in shock. Is he going to fight 8 late-stage soul formation cultivators by himself? Many cultivators roared. You have to know that he's only at mid-stage soul formation. Although he killed a Hall Master of the Immortal Palace, there's no need to be so arrogant. Crazy, this kid is crazy. Countless people couldn't believe their eyes. Even Yi Wushuang and the rest could not help but worry. Yi Wushuang's eyes focused. He turned into sword intent and wanted to help Yi Chen. Don't go. The Patriarch of Yellow Spring stopped him and said in a deep voice, You know better than me what kind of person Fellow Yi is. Since he dares to say that, I'm sure he has some confidence. Yi Wushuang stopped walking, but there was still worry in his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen. Is Big Brother going to use that divine ability? Yes, Big Brother's body is strong, so he can use it. He seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but smile. He then said with some pity, It's just that Big Brother has used this move in advance. I'm afraid you'll have to spend a lot of effort to refine it later. What divine ability? Patriarch Yellow Spring's interest was piqued. Before Yi Wushuang could speak, the Thunder Hall Master in the Void laughed out of extreme anger. Yi, you're only at mid-stage soul transformation. How dare you try to fight the 8 of us alone? Looks like you're destined to die here today. Is that so? However, Yi Chen smiled strangely when he heard that. Then, he overlapped his hands and a strange seal hovered on his fingertip. Under everyone's gaze, 2 balls of black and white energy condensed between his palms. The black and white intersected. It was the yin and yang energy and the Tai Chi pattern. What is he doing? Everyone could not help but focus when they saw that. Even Thunder Hall Master and the rest stared at this scene. Their intuition told them that the change of the seal seemed to be some kind of divine ability. Only the smile at the corner of Yi Wushuang's lips grew brighter. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the Tai Chi pattern in Yi Chen's hand suddenly expanded. Then, it turned into 2 streams of black energy that spun rapidly beside him. In an instant, the world shook as if it had been turned upside down. At that moment, endless spiritual energy of heaven and earth moved toward him crazily. It covered the sky and covered the earth, drowning him completely. Yi Chen stood with his head held high. He absorbed spiritual energy from all directions and devoured the essence of the sun and moon. Meanwhile, the 2 streams of black and white energy beside him began to grow violently. It was as if he had turned into a huge purple-gold cocoon. Quick, stop him now. Sensing the earth-shattering aura, Thunder Hall Master's expression changed drastically. Then, He activated his cultivation base and charged toward Yi Chen frantically. Do it! At the same time, the Void Infinity Sect Master, Zhou Dongxian, and the remaining 7 Master Stage God Transformation Cultivators attacked at the same time. For some reason, the pressure that Yi Chen gave them at that moment was growing. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were on tenterhook. Ye go to hell! Thunder Hall Master summoned a terrifying bolt of lightning and blasted it directly at the cocoon outside Yi Chen's body. The killing intent was almost tangible. However, the lightning that was enough to kill any mid-stage God Transformation Cultivator was absorbed by the cocoon that wrapped around Yi Chen. What? Thunder Hall Master's expression changed instantly. Before he could react, an incomparably surging energy suddenly surged out from the giant cocoon. Boom! Under such energy, Thunder Hall Master, who was the first to be hit, let out a muffled grunt before his body was sent flying. The other 7 people were also sent flying. How could this be? The Sky-Severing Sect Master forcefully suppressed the surging vital energy and blood in his body. He looked at the purple-gold cocoon with incomparable shock in his eyes. The 8 of us Master Stage God Transformation Cultivators are unable to resist his aura? Crack, crack, crack. At that moment, cracks appeared on the surface of the purple-gold cocoon, as if some terrifying existence was about to awaken from within. Boom! With a loud bang, the giant cocoon was completely broken. The scene that entered everyone's eyes caused everyone to be incomparably shocked. 3 Yi Chen had appeared in the giant cocoon. One of them was dressed in green, one in white, and one in black. Apart from that, their facial features and figures were identical, as if they were carved from the same mold. Among them, the green-robed Yi Chen's gaze was indifferent. The white-robed Yi Chen looked like an immortal with outstanding grace. The black-robed Yi Chen's demonic energy surged, as if he was the reincarnation of the demon lord. The 3 Yi Chen stood side by side, each with a different temperament. 3 terrifying auras enveloped the surroundings, making one's heart palpitate. Meng Meng, who was in Wu Lan's arms, was also stunned. She widened her eyes and squeaked, 3 dads? Why are there 3 Xiao Chen? Yi Hai and Wu Lan revealed expressions as if they had seen a ghost. Even though Yi Chen was their son and they had been together for more than 20 years. However, at that moment they really could not tell which of the 3 Yi Chen was their son. End of this chapter. Chapter 1352. F***CK. Even though the patriarch had seen a lot in his previous life, he could not help but be shocked when he saw the 3 Yi Chens suddenly appear. Are these clones? The patriarch of Hell stared at the 3 Yi Chen in shock. No, since they're clones, why are all 3 fellow Yus at intermediate stage soul formation stage? Impossible, this is impossible. He shook his head frantically. He knew the clone technique too, but everyone knew that clones were separated from the main body. The more clones there were, the more the power of the main body would be scattered, causing the power of the clones to be a level lower than the main body. However, the 3 Yi Chens before him were all intermediate stage soul formation stage. This is 3 pure ones. Yi Wushuang explained calmly. This divinity is different from ordinary clone technique. The 2 bodies that Big Brother split can inherit the power and cultivation of the main body. Moreover, these 2 bodies will evolve and grow in the future. How is this possible? Jealousy and envy appeared in the Patriarch of Hell's eyes. Where did fellow Yi get such a heaven-defying divinity? At this point, he seemed to have thought of something and frowned. Wait, since fellow Yi knows this divinity, why haven't you used it before? Yi Wushuang's smile froze when he heard that, and he shook his head slightly. At that moment, the world was dead silent. Everyone was dumbfounded. They did not expect that there would suddenly be 2 identical Yi Chen. What divinity is this? Hall Master Lei and the rest gasped. Under everyone's gaze, the green-robed Yi Chen looked at the black and white Yi Chen next to him quietly. He could not help but reveal a hint of nostalgia in his eyes. It's been a long time, old friends. Yi Wushuang was right. The black and white Yi Chen in front of him were the clones that he had created using 3 pure ones. It was also the 3 stages before Yi Chen ascended to the position of Heavenly Emperor. The green-robed Yi Chen was when he roamed the cultivation world. The white-robed Yi Chen was his representative when he ascended to the immortal world. Meanwhile, the black-robed Yi Chen was a demon body that he condensed to adapt to the filthy demonic energy of the devil world after he mistakenly entered the devil world. His Yi Qi turning 3 pure ones technique was different from Ying's Yi Qi turning 3 pure ones technique. The former's cultivation was at most an incomplete version of it, which was why Ying failed. The 3 Yi Chens could be summarized as spirit body, immortal body, and devil body. The ones who won were the jade body, the evil body, and the dharma body. He didn't want to use this divine ability unless he had no other choice. His original plan was to wait until he returned to the immortal world before condensing them. At that time, the cultivation of the 2 clones would at least be at the level of a true immortal. Now that it had been unleashed ahead of time, it was only at the mid-soul formation stage. If it wanted to evolve to the late soul formation stage, it would take a lot of effort to make it grow. However, everything was worth it to save Su Yuhan. Ha ha ha! At this moment, a sneer suddenly resounded in the sky. Yi, do you think you can scare us by casually conjuring 2 clones? However, Temple Master Lei looked at Yi Chen in disdain. These 2 clones of yours are illusions. Even if they're real, it won't change anything. Hearing that, the other 7 Mastery Stage God Transformation Stage powerhouses nodded subconsciously. They had never heard of a clone being able to inherit the cultivation base and stage of the main body. Therefore, to them, the 2 extra Yi Chen were just superficial. Is that so? Yi Chen smiled noncommittally and nodded slightly at the black and white Yi Chen. Boom! At the next moment, 3 mid-stage God Transformation Stage auras suddenly erupted, sweeping through heaven and earth and shaking the surroundings. I'll destroy Tongtian Mountain today. Yi Chen took a step out and shot up. He swung his Tongtian golden fist at Temple Master Lei. At the same time, the black and white Yi Chen moved. The white-robed Yi Chen's white robe fluttered as he stepped into the air, causing the air to collapse. He charged straight at the Void Everlasting Sect Master, Zhou Dongxian, and the rest. The black-robed Yi Chen let out a long roar. A dark gleam flashed in his eyes. He extended a huge hand that was wrapped in endless black energy toward the sky, severing Sect Master and the rest. Kill! At that moment, the Patriarch of Hell and Yi Wushuang attacked at the same time. They charged at the dozen or so mid-stage God Transformation Stage cultivators. Attack! Temple Master North Yun, the Patriarch of Green Spirit, and nearly 10 other beginner-stage God Transformation Stage cultivators attacked one after another, each finding their own opponent. Xiao Hei's body swayed and protected Yi Hai and Wu Lan tightly. Its fierce eyes scanned the surroundings covetously, preventing anyone from attacking Yi Hai and Wu Lan. Perfect timing! Temple Master Lei snorted coldly. The lightning on his body was dazzling as if it had split the day. He charged at Yi Chen with terrifying might. Yi Chen soared into the sky and tore the sky apart. He activated his body with all his might and was fearless of the lightning. He threw a punch at Temple Master Lei. Even Temple Master Lei's expression changed when he saw the might of that punch. Crack! With a violent crisp sound, Temple Master Lei immediately felt a heavy blow to his chest, as if all the bones in his body had broken. He groaned in extreme pain and staggered backward. His eyes were filled with shock when he looked at Yi Chen. What a powerful body! Upon closer inspection, his chest had caved in deeply. Yi Chen walked through the shattered space as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. He charged at Temple Master Lei again. At the same time, the sky-severing sect master saw the black-robed Yi Chen charging at him. He could not help but scoff. Then, He quickly formed a sky-severing seal and slammed it at the black-robed Yi Chen. However, the black-robed Yi Chen's black hair shot into the sky. His hand covered the sky like a giant claw. Accompanied by endless black energy, it slammed at the sky-severing sect master fiercely. Rumble! At that moment, the two extremely terrifying attacks collided. The sky-severing seal that was lying in the air suddenly shattered. The black-robed Yi Chen's giant palm did not slow down. "You're courting death." The sky-severing sect master's gaze turned cold. He also slapped out with his palm and collided with the former's giant palm. Blech! The sky-severing sect master spat a mouthful of blood and retreated continuously. He was extremely shocked to discover that an extremely strange energy surged into his body and destroyed his internal organs wildly. It even had the urge to spread to his dantian. "Oh no, it's demonic energy!" The sky-severing sect master's expression changed drastically. He did not expect demonic energy to invade his body. He took a deep breath and tried his best to suppress the demonic energy in his body. "Die!" At that moment, a cold, killing intent landed on him. The spot between the black-haired Yi Chen's brows wiggled. Subsequently, a black vertical eye appeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. As the vertical eye opened, it was followed by an extremely strange black divine light. At that moment, all the hair on the sky-severing sect master's body stood on end. He frantically activated the protective spirit treasure hidden in his body. However, the black divine light broke through his spiritual armor with incomparable ease, before stabbing into his intang acupoint. "No!" The sky-severing sect master's expression changed drastically. With an unwilling roar, his body exploded on the spot, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky. This voice, which was mixed with unwillingness and fear, shook the entire sky and entered everyone's ears. The world suddenly fell into dead silence. Countless people looked at the black-haired Yi Chen in shock. Their eyes were filled with shock. The sky-severing sect master, a late-stage god transformation stage cultivator, was dead. At the same time, the other 6 late-stage god transformation stage cultivators, including Hall Master Lei, were stunned. Then, they could not help but exclaim in unison, "Fellow sky-severing sect." P.S. Chapter 3. I wanted to write a few more chapters today to finish writing the fighting plot, but fighting is too difficult to write. I can only write 3 chapters. Sorry. End of this chapter. Chapter 1353. Fellow sky-severing. Hall Master Lei and the other 7 late-stage god transformation stage cultivators roared furiously. Their faces were ashen, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. The battle had just begun, but one of them had already died. Moreover, it was the sect master of the sky-severing sect, who was one of the strongest. The sect master of the sky-severing sect is dead? The hundreds of thousands of cultivators below were extremely shocked. They stared fixedly at the black-robed Yi Chen. They could not believe what they were seeing. At the same time, 2 more screams shook the void. The Patriarch of Hell activated an incomparably vast and mysterious seal, directly killing an intermediate-stage god transformation stage cultivator on the spot. Yi Wushuang's sword tore through the air, and his sword intent was unstoppable. An intermediate-stage god transformation stage cultivator's body was sliced open by the sword, and only his primordial spirit managed to escape. Everyone was even more shocked. Damn it! Hall Master Lei's eyes surged with rage when he saw that. He roared, "Activate the killing formation!" Boom! Tens of thousands of cultivators leaped out from the Tongtian mountain in an instant. They unleashed all of their cultivation and poured it into the formation around them. Tens of thousands of formation beams shot into the sky. These tens of thousands of formation beams turned into a huge formation light screen in the air, like an upside-down bowl. In an instant, the world lost its color, and the wind and clouds changed. the entire Tongtian mountain turned from white to black, as if it had turned into an endless land of ghosts that devoured everything. Endless imprints appeared in the air, enveloping everyone within. Waves of terrifying invisible killing intent caused even the sky to tremble. The invisible killing intent seemed to want to kill all living beings. Someone in Yi Chen's camp screamed under such a terrifying tremor. He felt as if his flesh and blood were melting while every bone in his body was shattering. Black Hall Master North Yun, Shi Qianhan, and the rest, who were fighting, were covered in endless blood. Countless wounds appeared on their bodies, as if they had turned into blood men. Oh no! Sensing the might, the Patriarch of Hell's expression changed slightly. He immediately roared and raised his hand to form a seal in the air, as if he wanted to resist the killing intent. Yi Wushuang's body emitted a golden glow as he faintly confronted the killing intent. The white clothes on his body began to shatter at a speed visible to the naked eye. It hurts, it hurts. Yi Hai and Wulan were horrified. Their bodies were on the verge of collapsing. Blackie roared angrily and drove his huge body to protect them below, using his physical body to forcefully resist the killing intent. Even so, his dragon scales were sent flying and blood splattered everywhere. Ah! When Hall Master Lei saw this, he could not help but laugh out loud. Yi, this is the method that my immortal palace has prepared for you. Let's see how you deal with it. The sect master of the True Void Everlasting Sect and the other late Divine Transformation Realm cultivators sneered, because they were not affected by the killing formation at all. Killing array? Yi Chen could not help but squint when he sensed the changes in the Patriarch of Hell and the rest. He then took a deep breath in and said, I'll break your killing formation today. The next moment, with a sway of his figure, a myriad of rays of divine light blossomed from him. His body expanded to a size of 100 meters, and he was practically the same size as the sky. He directly broke through the light screen of the formation, and from afar, it seemed as if Pangu had awakened. Oh my God! Seeing this scene, someone couldn't help but exclaim, Break! Yi Chen pushed his physical body to the limit. It was as if Gonggong had touched Mount Buzhou angrily. He stomped his foot hard on Tongtian Mountain. At that moment, Tongtian Mountain shook violently. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion erupted. Tens of thousands of Immortal Palace cultivators on the ground died on the spot. Countless formations shattered, and the killing formation that covered everyone collapsed on the spot. The Patriarch of Hell felt as if he had been pardoned. At that moment, the expressions of Hall Master Lei and the rest changed drastically. Yi Chen's body shrunk, and his entire body was bathed in divine light. He was like a god walking in the world. Is this the killing formation that you've prepared for me? I'll show you what a killing weapon is. With that, he stomped heavily. Boom! At that moment, the Tongtian Mountain, that stretched for tens of thousands of kilometers, shook once again. It was as if an earth dragon was turning over. Everyone felt the ground beneath their feet shake back and forth, as if there was an earthquake. They could not help but turn ashen. What is he doing now? The True Void Everlasting Sect's sect master, Zhou Dongxian, trembled in his heart. Sword, come. Under everyone's gazes, Yi Chen waved his hand at the air. In an instant, the endless earth energy in the entire Tongtian Mountain gathered toward him in the form of a yellow glow that was visible to the naked eye. Finally, it turned into a yellow longsword in his hand. The sword pierced through heaven and earth, pierced through the void, and crossed the sun and moon. Sword chi swept through the heavens and earth, as if a peerless divine sword had appeared. At that moment, everyone raised their heads and stared at the yellow longsword in his hand, dumbfounded. Extracting the mountain's soul as a sword, gathering earth energy as intent. When the Patriarch of Hell saw this, he could not help but inhale a breath of cold air. He could not help but exclaim, "Oh my God, fellow Yi is so generous!" Even he, who was at the tribulation stage in his previous life, could not do such a thing. With the 3-foot-long dragon spring sword in hand, I swear I won't rest until I kill the evil. Yi Chen held the sword in one hand and slashed in the air. Boom! A 1,000-foot-long dragon soared in the sky, striking the sun and moon. It turned the space within 10 kilometers into a long river, directly slashing toward Hall Master Lei and the rest. Oh no! At that moment, Hall Master Lei and the rest had goosebumps all over their bodies. At the same time, their expressions changed drastically, and they retreated rapidly. However, the sect master of the Mystic Sun sect did not manage to dodge. With a scream, his head was chopped off on the spot. His primordial spirit seemed to want to escape, but it was torn apart by the sword qi that covered 10 kilometers. Fellow Xian Yang. Seeing this, Hall Master Lei and the rest were stunned. There was shock, fear, and even more disbelief. Killing a late-stage god transformation stage with a single strike. Everyone was terrified, as if they had seen a ghost. All of you will die today. Yi Chen took a step forward with his sword in hand. At the same time, the black and white Yi Chen attacked again. Each of them charged at a late-stage god transformation stage cultivator. You guys hold back his clone. We'll work together to deal with him. Hall Master Lei suddenly looked at the 2 late-stage god transformation stage cultivators and roared, "Everyone, if you guys hold back, all of us will die today." The 5 late-stage god transformation stage cultivators nodded at the same time. Their expressions were extremely terrible. At that moment, they were scared out of their wits by Yi Chen. "Attack!" Temple Master Lei roared and immediately joined forces with the 2 Master Stage Soul Transformation cultivators to attack Yi Chen. Their eyes were filled with madness. Roar! The Thunder Temple Master's entire body was covered in lightning. Holding a thunder halberd in his hand, he charged at Yi Chen with terrifying thunder might. Kill! Behind him, the long hair of the Void Everlasting Sect Master fluttered. He turned into a ferocious beast that devoured the void and attacked Yi Chen with a killing technique. "Humph!" Yi Chen scoffed. A sword gleam shot into the sky from his hand and slashed forward. It tore through the void like a rainbow piercing through the moon. End of chapter. Chapter 1354. Boom! Yi Chen's sword collided with the trio's divine abilities. How powerful was the combined attack of 3 late-stage soul formation cultivators. Each of their attacks was comparable to a nuclear weapon, forcefully wiping out a country. Rumble! A black hole was pierced through the void. A terrifying energy storm swept out in all directions violently. Wherever it passed, the earth was destroyed and the void collapsed. Even the people on the ground were screaming as they desperately resisted such power. At that moment, Hall Master Lei and the other 2 vomited blood. Their bodies flew backward uncontrollably, and their faces became extremely dispirited. Yi Chen was also pushed back dozens of meters. He felt the vital energy and blood in his body churning, as if it was about to burst his blood vessels. "Guys, did you see that?" Hall Master Lei laughed maniacally. "This brat is only a mid-stage soul formation cultivator after all. As long as the 3 of us aren't split up, we can exhaust him to death." The true Void Everlasting Sect Master, Zhou Dongxian, and the other 2 revealed looks of joy. However, in the next moment, another earth-shattering shriek resounded in the sky. Everyone looked over, and the scene that entered their eyes caused fear to appear on their faces. The white-robed Yi Chen and the black-robed Yi Chen had joined forces to kill a late-stage soul formation cultivator. The remaining late-stage soul formation cultivator's face was filled with shock, and he had suffered many injuries. Another person died. The smiles on the faces of Hall Master Lei and the others froze. They had a total of 8 late-stage soul formation cultivators. Now, 4 of them had died, and there were less than 4 left. Meanwhile, Yi Chen had the help of 2 clones. Sooner or later, the 2 clones would kill the other late-stage soul formation cultivator. By then, the 3 Yi Chen would join forces to fight the 3 of them. How could they fight? In an instant, the true Void Everlasting sect master, Zhou Dongxian, and the others could not help but break out in cold sweat. Fear and trembling kept growing in their hearts like seaweed. Fellow Yi, I'll back out of this matter. I'll back out. At that moment, the Jade Feather Mountain Patriarch, who was besieged by the black and white Yi Chen, spat blood repeatedly as he roared crazily. At this moment, his complexion was extremely dispirited. His left shoulder had forcefully caved in, revealing the ghastly white bones that had been dyed red with fresh blood. Hearing those words, Hall Master Lei's expression involuntarily changed. Then, he couldn't help glaring at the former. Fellow Fellow Yi, I'm willing to withdraw. I won't interfere in this matter any more. The Patriarch of Jade Feather Mountain did not seem to hear his roar. He looked at Yi Chen in fear. As long as you're willing to let me go, I promise that I won't be your enemy anymore. I can swear. He was almost roaring as he said those words. There was no one who did not fear death, especially at his level. The reason why he helped the Immortal Palace deal with Yi Chen before was because he felt that Yi Chen could not possibly be a match for the Immortal Palace. However, now, 4 of them died. No matter how much confidence he had in Immortal Palace, he couldn't hold on anymore. At the same time, the black and white Yi Chen stopped moving. At that moment, everyone looked at Yi Chen, including the Patriarch of Jade Feather Mountain and the sect master of the Void Everlasting sect, Zhou Dongxian. Meeting the Jade Feather Mountain's Patriarch's gaze, Yi Chen said calmly, "If you retreat now, I won't kill you." "All right, thank you." Hearing that, the Patriarch of Jade Feather Mountain felt as if he had been pardoned. After a moment of ecstasy, he immediately activated his true origin energy without hesitation and turned into a long rainbow that fled into the sky. Hall Master Lei's eyes were wide open. ****, come back. However, the former did not even turn around as if he did not hear him. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon. Hall Master Lei's expression was ferocious, and his killing intent was heavenly. Jade Feather Mountain, after this, my immortal palace will definitely be destroyed. Before he could finish speaking, 2 voices sounded in his ears. "Fellow Yi, I won't care about this anymore. Please let me go." "I won't care either." The sect master of the Void Everlasting sect, Zhou Dongxian, and the other late-stage soul formation cultivators spoke in unison as they looked at Yi Chen. Blurred. Hall Master Lei spat a mouthful of blood on the spot. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at the 2 of them. "Why you guys?" Yi Chen's expression eased as he said, "Sure." Hall Master Lei, don't say any more. Zhou Dongxuan's expression was extremely gloomy. "I don't want the conditions that your immortal palace agreed to this time. Good luck to your immortal palace." With that, he immediately leaped and left. ****, you're simply a ****. Hall Master Lei's face was ashen. "You ****, just you wait. In the future, my immortal palace will definitely destroy you." "So be it. We're only pursuing the great Tao of immortality. Our disciples and inheritances are ultimately worldly possessions." The last late-stage soul formation cultivator sneered. "Moreover, it's still unknown whether your immortal palace will survive this time." After he finished speaking, he also left. The world suddenly became deathly silent. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. They didn't expect that such a shocking reversal would occur. However, after thinking about it carefully, it made sense. The 8 late-stage soul formation cultivators had been killed by Yi Chen. The remaining 4 would definitely not be united anymore. Yi Chen scanned the entire place coldly. His gaze was focused on the remaining dozen or so mid-stage soul formation cultivators. "Anyone else who wants to leave? I'll give you a chance. It's not too late to scram now." An old man wearing a Taoist robe and holding a horsetail whisk stood out. "Fellow Yi, I, Long Shuzi, am willing to leave." The Crimson Firmament sect doesn't care anymore. The Blue Thunder sect is willing to leave. And the Wind God sect, in just a few breaths of time, nearly 12 major sects in the Purple Firmament world expressed their willingness to leave. What a joke! Even the 3 late-stage soul formation cultivators had run away. Were they, a group of mid-stage soul formation cultivators, going to stay and wait for death? As for the punishment from the Immortal Palace? No one thought about it. No matter how severe the punishment was, it could not compare to death. Moreover, the late-stage soul formation cultivator who left last was right. It was unknown whether the Immortal Palace could survive Yi Chen's confrontation with the Immortal Palace today. Yi Chen did not stop them and allowed them to leave. His goal was to save Su Yuhan, not to kill. These people chose to leave wisely, saving him a lot of effort. In the end, only Hall Master Lei, who was a late-stage soul formation cultivator, and 3 mid-stage soul formation cultivators from the Immortal Palace were left on Tongtian Mountain. The situation had changed dramatically. Hall Master Lei and the 3 mid-stage soul formation cultivators from the Immortal Palace subconsciously gathered together. Their bodies could not help but tremble, and their expressions were extremely ugly, as if they were terrified. Someone wanted to escape, but he was stopped by the Patriarch of Hell and Yi Wushuang. The Patriarch of Hell chuckled and said, "Where do you think you're going?" Yi Chen walked toward the 4 of them step by step. In the end, his gaze landed on Hall Master Lei's nervous face, and a mocking smile appeared at the corner of his lips. "I'm afraid you didn't expect this to happen, did you?" End of this chapter. Chapter 1355. Plop. A mid-stage soul formation cultivator beside Hall Master Lei knelt before Yi Chen on the spot with an extremely terrified expression. "Fellow Yi, spare me, spare me. We're under the orders of the Immortal Palace. We didn't mean to become enemies with you." As soon as he said that, the other 2 mid-stage soul formation cultivators knelt down one after another. They kowtowed like they were pounding garlic, their bodies trembling. "Traitors, you 2 traitors!" Seeing this, Hall Master Lei almost vomited blood. "Aren't you afraid of being punished by the Immortal Palace?" Yi Chen stared at him coldly. "I'll give you a chance now. Kneel down and submit to me. Bring me to Su Yuhan and I'll spare your life." "Yi, just give up." Hall Master Lei sneered when he heard that. "I admit that the Immortal Palace has underestimated you. However, if I want to leave, how will you stop me?" As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed. He raised his hand and tore open a crack. His figure dashed towards the crack at lightning speed. "Run!" At the same time, the 3 mid-stage soul formation cultivators kneeling on the ground spread out at the same time, wanting to take advantage of this opportunity to escape. Escape? Yi Chen's gaze turned cold. Then, he crossed his arms as if he was grabbing the stars and the moon. Boom! Following the loud bang, Hall Master Lei was shocked to discover that the space he had torn open had closed. The other 3 soul formation cultivators also discovered that the space they were in had been forcefully sealed. Hall Master Lei roared crazily, "Yi, you can't kill me!" Universe collapsing lightning strike. Yi Chen's punch shocked the world, triggering tens of thousands of lightning bolts. Lightning appeared in the sky like the wrath of heaven descending, spanning thousands of meters. Bang! The 3 mid-stage soul formation cultivators were the first to be drowned by the terrifying lightning. Hall Master Lei's pupils constricted violently as he frantically activated his protective spirit treasure. However, all of this was useless. His entire body was enveloped by the glow of lightning, and countless cracks surged out from his body starting from his chest. It was like glass had shattered in half, and in the end, it exploded into countless fragments that vanished into thin air. Dead silence. The world suddenly fell into dead silence. Everyone stared blankly at this scene. Hall Master Lei had set up a peerless killing array on Skypiercing Mountain and had the help of many soul formation stage cultivators. However, the final outcome was death. This person is too terrifying. Fortunately, we didn't attack him due to our low strength. Otherwise, the consequences could be imagined. Perhaps he really does have the ability to destroy the immortal palace. In an instant, the silence was broken by waves of gasps and uproars. Countless gazes blankly stared at the figure that was like a god descending to the mortal world. Yi Wuxiang walked over slowly and looked at Yi Chen's rather pale face worriedly. "Brother, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Yi Chen took a deep breath in and his gaze suddenly landed on the depths of Tongtian Mountain. "Let's go. It's time to meet the master of the immortal palace." At the peak of the sky-piercing mountain, the vast heavenly palace was still as majestic as ever. Clouds and mist lingered around it, containing a supreme majesty. Countless figures with powerful auras shuttled back and forth, as though they were setting up the wedding venue. Whooshing sounds rose and fell. In the depths of the heavenly palace, two figures sat cross-legged. The space around them became incomparably distorted as they breathed. Qi Daolin, who was dressed in white, looked straight at the young man with evil aura. His eyes drooped as he muttered, defeated. "That trash, Hall Masterlay, actually failed to kill this brat. I have to say, this brat is truly powerful." Qi Huang, who was opposite him, also had a somewhat solemn expression. 8 late-stage soul formation stage cultivators joined forces and a peerless killing array, yet 4 of them were actually killed by him. Why is this brat's clone technique so powerful? Qi Daolin's heart was slightly fearful as he said in a deep voice, "The 2 clones actually maintain the same battle prowess as the main body. If he was a perfected soul formation stage cultivator, even if you and I joined forces, we probably wouldn't be able to. I've never heard of such a divinity before." Qi Huang's eyes narrowed slightly as a dark glint flashed across his deep eyes. "Looks like this brat has an extraordinary secret." This brat came from the celestial burial planet. The natives of the celestial burial planet are merely a bunch of martial arts trash. Back then, when we invaded the celestial burial planet, we were all killed or injured. How did he obtain the cultivation inheritance? His eyes flickered and he couldn't help but frown. Could it be that this brat was really a trap, that the celestial burial planet's heavenly Tao had foreseen the impending catastrophe? What should we do now? Qi Daolin interrupted his words. Hearing this, Qi Huang immediately laughed wickedly. His smile revealed a hint of coldness. Act according to the plan. It's time to prepare a big gift for him. Outside the palace of Tao Immortals, the bronze gate towered like a towering mountain. It was incomparably majestic and dazzling. At this moment, outside the bronze gate, there were countless cultivators of the palace of Tao Immortals. These people all held magic weapons in their hands as they looked at the sky with trepidation. Among them, there were cultivators of the Golden Core stage and cultivators of the Early Soul Formation stage. Dong, 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 following a series of deep sounds that sounded like huge copper colliding with a large bell, a group of people with monstrous killing intent appeared in everyone's eyes. Following their appearance, the temperature in that area suddenly dropped, as if it had turned into an icy hell. This group of people was none other than Yi Chen and the rest. Kill. Before Yi Chen and the rest could speak, the many Immortal Palace cultivators guarding outside the bronze gate of the Immortal Palace charged over. Their eyes were filled with madness. "You're courting death." The Patriarch of Hell and Yi Wuxiang shot out and took the initiative to meet the group of people. The Patriarch of Hell shouted, "Fellow Yi, leave these lackeys to us. Go and find him quickly." "All right." Yi Chen nodded lightly. Then, his body flashed and he shot into the bronze gate immediately. During that time, some cultivators who were not afraid of death were crushed into a bloody mist by his pressure before they could even get close to him. At the same time, his divine consciousness surged out in an attempt to envelop the area. However, what surprised him was that the arrangements inside the Immortal Palace could actually block divine consciousness, preventing his divine consciousness from enveloping too much. Old Dog Qi of the Immortal Palace, Yi Chen has already killed his way to your doorstep. Are you still going to hide? Yi Chen looked into the depths of the immortal palace. His voice, wrapped in powerful true origin energy, became incomparably mighty. It rumbled like thunder in the world. At the same time, in the boundless purple bamboo forest, a beautiful figure stood up in shock. Her beautiful eyes stared blankly out of the bamboo forest as she cried tears of joy, "It's Xiaochen, it's really Xiaochen! Xiaochen, I'm here!" Su Yuhan shouted with all her might. However, no matter how hoarse she shouted, her voice could not pass through the bamboo forest in front of her. In the immortal palace, almost as soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, an old chuckle resounded in the air. "Haha, I have to say, I've really underestimated you. You were actually able to kill your way here unscathed." End of this chapter. Chapter 1356. Haha, I have to say, I've really underestimated you. You're actually able to kill your way here unscathed. As the voice fell, the void shattered. Two rays of dark light tore through the air from the depths of the heavenly palace and stopped 3,000 meters away from Yi Chen. The two figures were an old man and a young man. The old man on the left was dressed in white. His hair was black and white, and his face was as haggard as tree bark. His eyes were like a dark abyss that could captivate one's soul. On the other hand, the young man on the right was dressed in black. His face was extraordinarily handsome, but if one took a closer look, they would notice an evil smile at the corner of his lips from time to time. Who else could they be but Qi Daolin and Qi Huang? Yi Chen's gaze stopped on the two of them. Extreme killing intent surged in the depths of his eyes. However, his gaze paused when he glanced at Qi Huang. Perfected God transformation stage. His eyes flashed imperceptibly. Qi Huang had severed his arms back then and used a blood sacrifice to escape from him. Logically speaking, it would be very difficult for him to recover from his injuries in a short period of time. However, the former's complexion was quite good at the moment. What surprised him the most was that the former's cultivation base had also risen from intermediate stage God transformation stage to perfected God transformation stage. Thinking to this point, he seemed to have thought of something and immediately looked at Qi Daolin with a cold smile. As the saying goes, even a vicious tiger doesn't eat its cubs. I didn't expect you to sit back and watch your son be possessed. Qi Daolin's eyes narrowed slightly as pain flashed through them. Then, he said, ever since we stepped onto the path of cultivation, we were destined to sever our ties with the mortal world and sever our emotions. It's just a son. We can have another one in the future. In the future? Yi Chen scoffed when he heard that. He no longer hid the killing intent in his body. You have no future because all of you will die in my hands today. At this point, he could not help but take a deep breath in and said slowly, "Hand over my wife and brother, and I can give the two of you a dignified death." Shameless boasting, Qi Daolin sneered and was about to speak. However, he was interrupted by Qi Huang, who looked at Yi Chen and snickered. "Junior Yi, you're a lowly native from the celestial burial planet." Yi Chen's eyes turned slightly cold. "Who the hell are you?" Qi Huang wasn't angry at all. Instead, he chuckled and introduced himself. "You can call me Teacher Mu. Your woman, your brother, and that little girl were all captured by me." The killing intent on Yi Chen's body exploded as soon as he said that. He stared at the former coldly. "I swear that I'll extract your soul and burn your bones to ashes." "You're losing your cool already?" Master Mu sneered. "Don't you want to know why I kidnapped your woman, your brother, and that little girl named Qianshan?" Yi Chen suppressed his killing intent and glared at him coldly. Seeing this, Master Mu was even more satisfied. He chuckled and said, "I'm from the Ziwei Star Zone's Guangming sect, and I'm known as the Guangming sect's ancestor. Back then, we joined forces with the other sects in the Ziwei Star Zone to travel through the starry sky and descend upon your celestial burial planet." Yi Chen's pupils constricted when he heard that. He said coldly, "So, you're Earth's enemy from the outer realm." Hee, that's right. Master Mu snickered. Back then, we, the 8 peerless sects of Ziwei Star region, descended on Earth and tried to turn Earth into purgatory. Who would have thought that when we invaded Earth's world wall, we would discover that Earth had already given birth to the heavenly Tao. In order to stop us from descending, the heavenly Tao of Earth did not hesitate to violate its own great Tao and transform into a human to attack us. At this point, a hint of fear flashed through his eyes. At that time she killed all the peak powerhouses of the 8 sections. I only managed to survive by splitting my primordial spirit into the void at the critical moment. Yi Chen's eyes flickered when he heard that. It was similar to what he knew. The heavenly Tao of Earth had killed the powerhouses of the foreign enemies and died. Even so, the core forces of the 8 sects still descended on Earth. Following that, the Saints of Earth joined forces to counterattack, including the Saints of the East and the Gods of the West. In the end, both sides perished together. Unfortunately, the moment the heavenly Tao of Earth attacked, it was destined to perish. However, it was smart to seal the world wall again before it died, and even left itself a backup plan. Master Mu suddenly looked at him. I believe you've guessed it. That child named Qianqian is a way out for the heavenly Tao. It's not an exaggeration to describe that girl as the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. If I'm not wrong, the heavenly Tao is the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. Yi Chen said with a cold smile. After you luckily escaped from the heavenly Tao, you fell into this firmament purple world and were taken in by the immortal palace, right? After saying that, he glanced at Qi Daolin. That's right. Master Mu smiled faintly. With the help of the immortal palace, I gradually recovered my cultivation base to full-stage soul formation. At this point, his voice suddenly became extremely sharp. But I am unwilling. I used to be a cultivator of the void training stage. How can I stop at the spirit forming stage? How can I be trapped in this small azure purple world? Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. So you captured my wife? You guessed right. Master Mu snorted coldly. I'm extremely good at deduction. In order to deduce the heavenly secrets of the incarnation of the heavenly Tao, I accidentally discovered that your wife was with the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. His eyes were filled with greed. What excited me the most was that your wife actually has a pure Yin body. She's the best cauldron in the world. If I were to pluck her, I would definitely be able to step into void refinement. And your brother, he has the innate netherworld battle body. He's the most suitable existence to be refined into a puppet. A monstrous ferocity appeared between his brows. At that time, I'll control the incarnation of the heavenly Tao and refine it into a world spirit fetus. It'll be enough to sweep through the Ziwei galaxy. As soon as he said that, Yi Chen could not help but be shocked. He had to admit that the former's idea was crazy. He actually wanted to refine the Earth's heavenly Tao into a world spirit fetus. You're really a lunatic. He could not help but take a deep breath. What a pity. Master Mu seemed to say regretfully, it's a pity that your wife was already pregnant when she was captured by the immortal palace. What angered me was that the fetus in her womb suppressed the pure Yin energy in your wife's body, preventing me from plucking it. Anger surged in his eyes. I could only wait for it to be born. Unfortunately, this little rascal is still not born. It's been 2 years. Man proposes, but God disposes. Yi Chen was relieved. He could not help but sneer. Thank you for telling me so much information. In return, I'll grant you the death penalty. Is that so? A strange expression suddenly appeared on Master Mu's face. Do you really think I'm so kind as to tell you so much? End of this chapter.